Hey guys, and welcome back to another Fat Thoughts, another Game of the Year video. Hopefully this time it's going to be out around Game of the Year season, because I'm actually recording this fairly early compared to where I usually record it. Anyway, 2022 for gaming has been once again just an amazing year, to be a Switch owner at least anyway. Even other consoles as well, but of course, as always, I'll only be discussing the Switch's year here, and as always, the rules of my Game of the Year. If it came out on the Switch this year, it is eligible, even if it got like a re-release in terms of a physical edition, which is the case for one of the games here. But yeah, if it came out on Switch this year, it is eligible for the Game of the Year. Do feel a bit bad doing that, because sometimes like older games that came out on other systems that have been out for years sometimes get the Game of the Year over games that actually came out for the first time this year. So I think this year what I'm going to do is I'm going to have an overall Game of the Year, and then once we've discussed that, I'll tell you my Game of the Year for a game that came out this year for the first time, to separate the grey area, I think, so that everyone knows that this is actually my Game of the Year, but then there's also like, this is the Game of the Year that actually came out this year. So yeah, I'm going to do that this year. But in terms of the year overall, once again, you know, the first half of the year was quite barren. We didn't really get anything. I think there was like maybe 2 or 3 games that I picked up, and then as soon as the summer hit, it all came out, and yeah, it's not stopped coming since then. And I'm recording this around November, halfway through November. I think Pokemon Scarlet and Violet's just released, literally like days ago, which I'll be talking about in a minute. But because of that, I won't be able to play all the games that I wanted to this year. Like currently, I think the games that I'm not going to get a chance to play and finish and be able to give an opinion on in this video are the Crisis Core remake, the Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core remake, and Dragon Quest Treasures as well. So those 2 games are probably the ones that I'm not going to be able to talk about, even though they've come out this year, and I'll probably, I'll end up playing them. And this year, there's no honourable mentions. I just want to go straight into the games that I played this year. There wasn't really a game like, Pokemon Fire Red or Immortals last year that had like an impact on me in some way. No old games really did this year. I didn't really play too many old games, because I would say even the first couple of games that came out this year kept me entertained for long enough, and I was still playing a load of games from last year actually into this year, which if you saw the release date for my Games of the Year 2021 video, yeah, you can probably tell I was still playing games from last year into this year. So the first game we're going to talk about, I'm actually going to talk about them in chronological order this year as well. So the first few games, unfortunately, it's just recency bias in like the worst way, because I don't remember as much about these games going into it. So the first game that I got this year, and one in a very busy year for Game Freak, Pokemon Legends Arceus. So Pokemon on the Switch has been pretty rough. I mean, I think the spin-offs have been okay. I would regard this as a spin-off, by the way. I think some are classing it as a mainline series, but I think they're the same for folks who seem to class like XD, Gale of Darkness, and Colosseum as mainline games. It's not a mainline game. And because of that, I didn't, a lot of the things about Legends Arceus, about it being sort of open world, although I hear people call it open zone, where it's kind of like Dragon Quest 11 in a way, if you think about it, where it's like not everything is seamless. A bit like Xenoblade Chronicles too, where it's not seamless going through the world. There are loading screens to different zones, but the areas are really big, and that's essentially what this game is. I didn't think it was a step forward for Pokemon or anything like that, because again, I didn't think this was a main series game. It doesn't play like a main series game at all. In fact, it very much plays like a Pokemon Snap, but instead of taking the pictures, you're like catching Pokemon, and it's all about catching Pokemon. Which for me has been a bit weird, because like, I have never ever been one to like catch all the Pokemon. Like, that's never been what I've been interested in. I've been interested, like, if me and my friend actually, who I talked about last year, who, we're playing through all the old Pokemon games, and we have like little battles and stuff. He was always very much the catch all of him side. Like, he was the one who, like, I think in Pokemon Fire and Leaf Green, if you catch a certain amount of Pokemon, you get rewards for it from Professor Oak's aids. And he got all of those rewards, and I didn't, because I was just like, I was focused on like the battling and the leveling up and stuff, and he focused on like catching all the Pokemon. So yeah, this one for me was like a really weird one, because I had to like sort of shift my perspective on what I feel like a Pokemon game is. But I actually had a lot of fun with Pokemon Legends Arceus. I mean, like I said, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet have just come out. Spoilers ahead that I won't be reviewing them or giving my opinion on them, because I didn't actually pick them up. Mainline Pokemon for me, after Sword and Shield, was just, I feel the greed with Pokemon now. I was thinking about it earlier, but like even 10 years ago, it was really hard to get like proper merchandise from Pokemon. If you wanted a plush or something, you'd usually have to settle for like one off Etsy that someone had made, which was good quality, but still have to like, you wouldn't get official merchandise very often from Pokemon. Whereas now it's like you can get Pokemon, Pokemon toothbrushes. Like, you get everything Pokemon. I just feel like the corporate side of it a lot more, especially when they release unfinished games. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl was a big indicator of that. That wasn't on Game Freak really, but it's still like, it's troubling that two developers that have developed Pokemon games, Ilka and Game Freak, they both have released really buggy, unpolished games, and it's giving the Pokemon series like this really bad. It's giving that the Assassin's Creed thing. It's like, everyone knows not to buy an Assassin's Creed on day one, and it's sort of getting like that with Pokemon now. It's like, don't buy it on day one, and yeah, I just don't feel the connection to the series that I had. I still have it to the series, but like in terms of how I used to feel about it, and not like how I feel about the newer games. But the spin-offs are different, a different case. I think the spin-offs get a bit more love, and Arceus is not perfect in any means by performance or looks or anything like that, but it was a fun time. It was busy work in a way. The story was alright. It's about these old-time Diamond and Pearl clans, and then you are actually part of the Galactic team, but like back then, because this game takes place, I think it's like 100 years before the events of Diamond and Pearl, so it's before the Sinnoh region even became the Sinnoh region, which I do have to say, it took me out of it already, because I was like, there's no way that the Sinnoh region went from barren wasteland to the Sinnoh region that we know in 100 years. Like, even in real world, if you look 100 years ago now, it's not like everywhere's a desert. Like, there's cities and stuff, and there's nothing like that in this region. So it was a bit unbelievable, but it's Pokemon, I suppose. But it's still one of those things where the lore, it can be interesting, but they didn't really delve into it. But you're a kid who falls from the sky, presumably from present time actually. You come with your own little smartphone and that, which I was like, oh, yeah. I mean, I think it's just me getting old now, but if I see a smartphone in a game, especially like Pokemon or something like that, it's a bit like Animal Crossing as well. When you have a smartphone there, it's like, kind of takes you out of like the not rural, is it rural? Or like old-timey, sort of like, just escapism. It's like, all these worlds don't have smartphones and stuff like that. I don't know, I feel like that's why a lot of like entertainment in general tries to take place in like medieval or even in like the 80s or 90s, before you had like before you could communicate with everyone, have every bit of information at your fingertips, because it makes for a more interesting world and story, I suppose, when you have those limitations put on you. But that's got nothing to do with Arceus, to be fair, but because the phone really only displays the map, which is fine. It's not really intrusive, to be fair. I just had a little moan about bloody smartphones. You get to choose between 3 starter Pokemon, Cyndaquil, Oshawott, and Rowlet, I believe, which is a really good mix of all the different generations. I chose Cyndaquil, and they all have different... This is one of my issues with Pokemon now, and I think I've said it before, but I just don't like how many forms there are of different Pokemon, and I feel like it's a way for them to make new Pokemon, but not really make new ones. They can just sort of take a design and go... Like, my friend Jez has done a really good video on, just a little tiny video on how they make the new Pokemon now.
Alright, we're about to announce the Sword and Shield expansion pass. What have you got for me? Yeah, it's going great. I've just come up with a new Galarian Slowpoke. Check it out. My god. We just made another $1 million! Did somebody say promotion? Is that easy? Is that easy?
Even though some of the new designs are kind of cool, like I like the way the new Typhlosion looks. It's a bit like Mega Evolution. It's like, I like the designs, but I don't like the concept of it. Like, I don't like the concept of a Pokemon just having the different, like, I guess lore-wise it makes sense, which is nice, but I just don't like the fact that, it's like, oh, we've got 800 different Pokemon now, and each of those, like 400 of those different Pokemon have different forms, or have like two or three different forms, and I don't know, I don't really like that. I would rather just have more new Pokemon, like brand new designs, I guess. I've always had a problem with forms ever since they came out in like Gen 4. I would say Gen 4 is where it started getting a bit like, okay, calm down now with them. And then they did not calm down, and they went absolutely mental with them after that, so. But catching Pokemon was magic, I gotta say that. Especially for the first few hours of the game, it was just getting the Pokeball in your hand and just having the button to just throw Pokeball, like, and you throw the Pokeball, I don't know what it is about that, but it felt great. Like, it felt like what we've always wanted to do with Pokemon. Like, you want to be the one to throw the ball like they do in the anime. You know, you want to be the one to throw the ball to catch him, and it's great. Yeah, they did a good job with it. I think I gave it a bit of stick before it came out because it started showing like, oh, you can craft items, oh, you can go anywhere you want to. Just, do you know what I mean? Like, there was literally, and to be fair, it is right. There is nothing in this game that has not been done by better games. It just takes stuff like that and sort of cobbles it together and makes it into, you know, gives it a Pokemon treatment. Which is fine because Pokemon still has the unique aspect of going out and catching all these lovable and recognisable creatures that we all like. So it has that with it. The exploration was also like okay. You had little nooks and crannies that you can get into with, you know, certain Pokemon will spawn there, and you get in there and you're like, oh, you know, Zora, what's that doing there? So you know, Mime Junior, or you know, in a little bit of grass. Oh, an Eevee, I want to get loads, and I managed to get all the evolutions, and it is fun. It's a fun game, but it's just one of them where it's a bit like, you probably shouldn't judge every game like this, but it's a bit like the Marvel TV shows these days. Where will you ever watch one of those and go, that's the best thing I've ever seen, or that's one of my favourite shows? I don't think you will, and I feel the same about like Legends Arceus, for example. I just think, is this one of my favourite games? No, not really. It's just sort of okay. But I just don't feel like there was enough put into it to be one of those. And it was just alright. That's one of the things about it is, yeah, it was okay. I liked Legends Arceus, and when it first came out, I think I gave it a bit more. I think I was just surprised at like how much I did like it, because I thought it wasn't going to be too amazing. But no, it was just alright. I liked it. I really liked the music in the game. Like, I'm glad it didn't go fully the Breath of the Wild route, where, you know, just little jingles and triangle pieces here and there when you're out in the world. There is some of that, but when you get to like areas like the Eternal Forest and stuff, it is really cool being in a location that you know of from the actual, you know, Sinnoh games. And hearing the remixed music, it's not even like remix, it's like rearranged to be, it's not like, when I say remix, sometimes I think like, oh, it's just got more beats in it, you know, it's just got more, it goes harder than the original. It's like, no, it doesn't. It goes softer than the original, but it fits the game so well, and the ambience is brilliant. And there's quite a few areas like that as well. I think I wish there was more areas where you could like sort of recognise them by the landscape. I can see why they didn't go for that, because they needed to sort of design the game to just be like, you know, just a catching playground really. The battling is also a bit different. Nearly every move has had its power nerfed, which is a bit odd really. I think it's because they want you to be able to catch Pokemon more, so, you know, they don't want you just fainting Pokemon left and right. That was fun as well. The battle has a style where you can choose like a speedier version of the move or a more powerful version of the move. And, you know, the battle system has been updated, I suppose, to sort of reflect that. And it is very much catered to a single player experience, this game. Like, there's not really any multiplayer. I think you can trade, but you can't battle or anything like that. And it's not meant to be. It's not meant to be a multiplayer game. And that's one of the reasons why, like, I think that this isn't a main series game, or shouldn't affect, in terms of battle anyway, it shouldn't affect the main series. Because this battle system is very much catered towards a single player. If this was multiplayer, this would be silly. Because like Pokemon could attack twice in one turn, you'd be able to do the thing in the anime where it's like, use Thunderbolt, now use Quick Attack. And it's like, well, hang on a minute, let me get my move in. This one, like, you can do that because you can see like a turn order, like many RPGs do, like Octopath Traveler or, you know, games like that. Where you can see like the turn order of who's coming up next. Get twice in one turn by using a speedier move or a priority move like Quick Attack. And yeah, no, that's a bit of strategy, and it's good for the single player, but for the multiplayer it wouldn't work. And the multiplayer battle system is perfectly fine, I think, and really robust. So I don't think there's, you know, you really need to do anything with that. You also don't have held items or abilities or anything like that. So yeah, it has been really skimmed down, and it's kind of refreshing in that way. So yeah, Legends Arceus overall, like, it's harder for me to say. Like I said, it. And to be fair, it is one of the first games I played this year, so I'm missing out a few things speaking about it. You know, you can sort of max out your Pokemon's EVs by using these grit items. I don't know if you can trade your Pokemon from Legends Arceus to the main games. That'd be kind of cool, because then you could actually max out their EVs really easily, and you could use them for multiplayer then. But I'm not too sure about that. I'm not going to preach gospel, so. But yeah, overall, Legends Arceus, I did like it. It was a very middle of the road game for me. Will I go back to it? I don't know. It was charming. Don't get me wrong. It was fun. It was a fun game. It just wasn't one of the. It didn't blow me away or anything like that. It wasn't a game that I'll be remembering for years to come, I don't think. But it was a solid time. Yeah, Legends Arceus. Now, a game that came out last year, and this is what I was talking about earlier with the little grey area sort of thing, but this game came out last year, technically digitally, but it came out this year physically, and that's when I picked it up, which is Disco Elysium: The Final Cut. So I've heard really good things about Disco Elysium since it came out like 2 years ago, I think, on all of the systems. It's like a role-playing game, but it really takes like the role-playing to, you know, the next level. You know, you're not your own character. You do have a backstory, which I love. I've sort of said this before in my other discussions about RPGs with friends and stuff like that, but I actually much prefer it when you're not your own character. I prefer it when you're someone else. You know, you can sort of give them your name and that, but I prefer it when you're someone else with their own backstory and stuff like that, because for me, it's like, I don't want to play myself in those games. I'd rather be, I want to slip my mind into another character and be them. You know, like, it probably is because I very much enjoy acting. Not so much anymore, but I used to be really into acting. So like, I really like taking charge of another character and just being able to become a different person. And that adds to the escapism for me, instead of just like inserting myself into a game. It is really cool because like, you do have your own backstory in that, but you can customize how your character will think. There is so much text in this game, and to be honest, it makes me feel stupid, like, this game, because the writing is so incredible. Like, it's incredible, but it's definitely like, it almost feels like an intellects game. Like, I'm reading the text and half it is not going in. You know, it's like you have your conscience talking to you for a lot of the game, and it's like sometimes, because you're a recovering like alcoholic, or you know, you've been taking a load of alcohol, you use a load of drugs and stuff like that, you'll have this voice in your head that's like, you know, go on, just, you know, it'll help you out, just try it. You know, you're nervous, calm down, like, try it. I'll try and find a clip of something that will come up, and I'm reading it or I'm listening to it, I'm just thinking, none of that has gone in, but I sort of get the point. But the game is essentially about you're a cop who's woken up in the middle of this diner, in the middle of this like absolute shit piece of shit town, piece of shit harbour town, I suppose you could say. The music really reflects that. The music in this game is incredible. You'll definitely get in your brain. It's not like battle-y or upbeat or anything like that. It just fits the game really well, and you can't think of this game without hearing the music either. But the game is honestly a bit like, almost like a real-time Cluedo game, I suppose. You know, you've got to figure out this crime that's been done, and you've got to follow these clues and talk to these people, and the game feels like it could go like 50 different ways because of the way that you play it. You know, it always feels like there's another route to go. For example, there's this sort of like mafia boss that you've got to deal with, whereas I felt like I never dealt with him. You know, I beat the game and everything, but I felt like I met him a few times, and like, don't get me wrong, he was part of the story, but I feel like I could have gone a different route and like had a lot to do with him, and maybe missed out some of the other stuff that I ended up doing. So this game is perfect for like multiple playthroughs. It was really good. I got really invested in it, and it's one of the most unique feeling games I think I've played this year, or ever really. It's probably a hard game to go back to as well, because now that I know like the main story of what happens in that, yeah, there is different endings, but it's one of those where I think it's sort of like, it's only the ending that changes, not really the stuff that leads up to it. As far as I know, you know, I don't know if that's true or what have you, but the visuals on Switch at least, like, were not that bad. I heard some iffy things about it going in, but I didn't think it was that bad at all really. There are some frame drops here and there, and you can feel like sometimes the Switch chugged to load stuff in at least, but no, I think it ran really well. Even the characters, like, sometimes they speak to you with like really intellectual, so I mean, some are just drunken idiots, but some are like really well spoken, and like I said, sometimes and you can play that way. You know, you can play your character as like just a dumbass who's just a meathead, or anything like something like that. To be fair, I think you're not supposed to maybe get everything in one playthrough, because there's a lot of stuff that I couldn't get because like one of my stats wasn't high enough, for example. And there's a way to like temporarily increase your stats so you can get access to more stuff and items and stuff like that. But no, it was a really good detective game, and I really do recommend it to anyone who likes role-playing games, or even like D&D, you know, something like that. Like, you don't play as yourself, but there's a lot of D&D stuff in there. Like, a lot of the stuff is decided by dice rolls, for example, which can be annoying sometimes, because I really liked it when it was based on one roll. So like, you'd have an option to talk to someone, and it'd be like, ask them about their daughter, you know, for example, and it would be like a red check, and that means that if you roll the dice and you fail, you just can't have access to that option again. Whereas if it's a white check, you can roll. If you fail, you know, you have to wait until that stat is leveled up, or you've done something to that stat, to come back and try again. But I like the red ones because it was kind of like, it felt like you had to be really careful with what you said to people instead of just like mashing A, or not really reading what was said. And that's the strength of this game, is when you read the text and what's being said. So yeah, I preferred those ones. But if you're a fan of like D&D or tabletop games or anything like that, this combines it in one of like the best ways, I think. Even though the rolls are a bit weird, because you are rolling dice, but it comes up like with a 72% chance or something like that. So you're rolling dice, but you're not really rolling dice, because if it comes up with a 72% chance, the dice part doesn't even really matter. You can just be like, 72% chance, that's over half, fuck it, and then see if it works. So yeah, but overall, Disco Elysium I had a really fun time with. Yeah, I would say I really liked it, to be honest. It was a good time, yeah. Now before we got to the summer and the floodgate opened and games just started coming out left and right, we got one of the games that I honestly think could be my game of the year. So let's talk about it, because it's Kirby and the Forgotten Land. So I think Kirby overall has just been going through a bit of a weird time since probably the end of the 3DS, to be honest. You know, they had a load of eShop games on the 3DS, which were like blown up versions of mini games found in Trouble Deluxe and Planet Robobot, both of which were incredible games. He had Star Allies that came out toward the first part of the Switch's lifespan, which was a very traditional Kirby game, and to be honest, it was like too traditional. I even went back and played Return to Dreamland, or Kirby's Adventure Wii as it's known here, and that did not blow me away at all. I thought that was like too basic. Maybe coming after Planet Robobot and Trouble Deluxe it felt that way, but I heard it was like one of the best ones and how much people liked it, so I was surprised I didn't like it as much. And Star Allies, it didn't run as well as you thought a game like that would do on the Switch, and like the menus were in 60 FPS but the game was in 30, and you could really see the difference, and it was really weird. But Kirby and the Forgotten Land is the first 3D game in the series, the first proper full-on 3D game in the series, and after playing it, it's kind of hard to realise, like, you wonder how it took this long for them to do it, because it looks like they've always known how to do it, because this first outing in the 3D space has been absolutely nailed. Now my favourite game of all time, or my favourite Kirby game of all time, is Superstar Ultra for the DS, but this one I think has replaced it because they just absolutely knocked it out of their park. They took everything that made Planet Robobot and Trouble Deluxe like charming and interesting, with not only the different core abilities and the different core abilities and stuff, but also stuff you can collect, like the key rings and the stickers. And just the extra stuff that you can do in Kirby games. That's one of the things that Kirby's always got going for him, and that's one of the reasons why I wasn't massive on Return to Dreamland, because it didn't have like anything to supplement the main gameplay. To be fair, Forgotten Land is actually a very traditional Kirby game if you think about it. In fact, in some ways it's even simpler, because you're in a 3D space now, you have less copy abilities than some of the games in the series, and they don't have as many moves as before, but the way that the world's designed around them, it feels like you've still got a lot to do with them. And at first I was a bit disappointed that they didn't have as many moves as they did in the 2D games, but because you can like upgrade them, like you can go from fire to twin fire to dragon fire, like it's ace, the amount of things you can do with all these different abilities. And like I said, like, there's secrets to find with different abilities, and that's one of the good things about this game, is there's so many secrets in each level. You can collect figures for your house, you can, because this is one of the best things about the game as well, is that they had this Waddle Dee town that you have to build up from the ground up by saving all these Waddle Dees in each level, and that was such a great move. I'm so glad it wasn't, like, it is a world map, but you have like a hub to return to, and I really do miss hub worlds in platformers, in 3D platformers, because I feel like they hold some of the charm of the game, and this hub world is up there with the best, because as you build up, you get more and more stuff. Like there's the Colosseum that opens up. There's been in other Kirby games that holds some of the best battles in the series, even in terms of like a spectacle and stuff like that. And I think people were saying this when this first came out, but this feels like the first Kirby game to get the full AAA Nintendo treatment. Like it feels on par with like a Mario Odyssey or Breath of the Wild. For me anyway, it feels that way, especially like in the boss battles, and especially like the later battles in the game. You're like, oh shit, and it goes completely classic Kirby, you know, completely what you'd expect from a Kirby game. It's great. Yeah, it goes from very cutesy to, oh my god, stuff for nightmares, but in the best way possible. And the game gets pretty hard too, like especially later on in the game, and one of the Colosseum challenges gets quite challenging. There's also challenges to get extra achievements and items through different things, like I'll beat a boss without losing any health, and the combat is the best in the series as well. It incorporates what a lot of games do now, which is a bit cheap because they don't really have their own spin on it, but it's just such a good system, which is, you know, if you dodge at the last minute, you get like a Bayonetta slowdown effect, and then you can like wail on the boss and stuff like that, and that's just so much fun. I feel like the game hit the perfect balance between being very casually friendly, because Kirby's known to be that very casually friendly, but also giving something for like the more veteran players who love the concept of Kirby but don't like how easy the games are. And this game, I think, is like easy, but in such a comfortable way, not a boring way. You know, like being too easy can sometimes take you out of the game. Forgotten Land's not like that because the levels are just so brilliant. The music's also great too. Nothing that if I'm being honest, like I've come away from the game and I haven't really remembered too many of the tracks. But I think, you know, especially toward the end of the game where things get more intense, there's some really great music there. And the game looks great, it performs great. Buttery, I think is it? No, it is. I think it is 30 FPS from what I remember, because I remember at the time like Mario Odyssey is 60, but Kirby's 30. But yeah, it don't really impact your enjoyment of the game in any way. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure it is 30 by the way. But no, Kirby Forgotten Land is my personal favourite Kirby game, and could be my game of the year, to be honest. It is right up there. I absolutely love the game, and I don't think I've talked about everything that I love here, but really it's a 3D platform at the end of the day. You know, there isn't a huge amount to go into, but the story is great, characters are great, there's a load of mini games to do. The game is so cute, my god, it is so cute. There's one bit where you go to this amusement park world and there's this cutout, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if I go up to it as Kirby, I wonder if he does something. And he goes in and he just like snuggles his face into the cutout, and you're like, oh, you killed me. I also didn't mind the companion this time either. I don't think I've ever really minded any Kirby companions, but this one, Elflin, I think his name is. He's cute, or she actually, I don't know. I don't think it does it ever say. I don't think it ever says what gender they are, but anyway, yeah. I don't know, just the characterization of all the characters in this game was great, like the Waddle Dees too, King Dedede when he shows up, Meta Knight, you know, also. I was disappointed you couldn't play as Meta Knight, or like some sort of mode where you can play as him. That's something that, would I like to see as DLC? Yeah, I wouldn't mind it, and I wouldn't mind it because this game has come out, it feels like a complete package, it feels great. Kirby and the Forgotten Land is definitely one of my most loved games of the year. So tasty. Now, the most disappointing game this year, straight off the bat, I've got to say it, it's Mario Strikers Battle League Football. And why is it the most disappointing game of the year? 2 words, free updates. Yeah, this free updates model that Nintendo's done for all its games is awful. It's a way for them to not put stuff in the game at launch and then add it back later so they can keep marketing the game. I just don't like that. It's one of those where it's really bad for preservation of the game itself. You know, when you get the game years down the line when the servers have shut down and you know, you can't update the game anymore, you're going to be left with a very bare bones experience. And to be fair, that is what was launched with. A bare bones experience. You know, compared to Mario Strikers Charged Football, which came out for the Wii many years ago, which I had so many fond memories with, this one is probably closer to Mario Smash Football on the GameCube, you know, in terms of, it doesn't get as crazy really. You know, the Mega Strike, or whatever it was called in Charged, has been really toned down here, so when you do a super, I think, is it a Hyper Strike? Is that a Hyper Strike now, or Super Strike? The big special move, the big special strike that you can do, that's been toned down now, so you can only get 2 goals from it, which I think is a good thing, because in Charged it got ridiculous. Charged was like playing Mario Kart on Frantic all the time. That's what it was like, and it was stupid fun. But even like from like a actual competitive standpoint, I think Charged has like a lot more trick shots and stuff, and of course it's an older game, so it was going to be figured out a lot more, but I just don't think this game has that, and I actually really wanted to get into it, but it was really hard because I think there's about 10 characters in the game, so there's 1 more than there was in Mario Smash Football, and a few less than there were in Charged. And yeah, they've updated the game now to add stuff in like Daisy and stuff like that, but they weren't in at the start of the game. They've completely removed gimmick stadiums, which, you know, you don't have to play these crazy gimmick stadiums, but I think they were a fun addition to Charged, to make it a bit more of like a party game, as well as like, you know, a bit like Smash. You can have the competitive, traditional, no gimmick side, and then all the other gimmicks, you know, for people who just want to be stupid and have fun. I think the items were a complete letdown. You know, you don't really have that many now, and it just caters so much to like the more core gameplay side, even though it's been slowed down a bit. The core gameplay is fun, and that's one of the reasons why I did put a bit of time into it. I think I put about 30 hours into it. But then it completely killed it for the game for me when I actually got to play the Strikers Club mode. And the Strikers Club mode is what they've been like advertising this game to be about loads. It's a shame because it is all about online, this game. You know, you have the single player thing, but people have mentioned that the Strikers games have never really had much good single player stuff to do, and that is true. You know, it's only ever been like a tournament or stuff like that, and you have multiple tournaments here as well, but I feel like in Charged, and even in Smash Football, they had a story to tell. Smash Football had those weird robots that they end up having to battle at the end of the game, like the super team, that do not look like Mario enemies at all. To be fair, I don't remember Charged story, but it was more like a tournament format. Here it's just, there's like no grandiose opening, there's nothing really, you know, it's just sort of like all the teams playing like a bracket, and then you get to the end and then you fight and you win a trophy, and that's it. And then there's a harder version of the trophy, and then that's it. There's no like, don't feel like there's any final boss or any story or any progression or anything like that, which is a shame. And I mean, one of the worst things about the AI in the harder difficulties is it feels like you're playing as yourself against 5 people, because the AI gets a bit ridiculous in terms of like the difficulty, and like not in like a good way, but in terms of like, oh, it's going to read where you're going to go and stuff like that. It's not really that fun, to be honest. It got quite frustrating. But yeah, let me get back to the Strikers Club, because when I went into this, I thought, is this going to be like an actual league, you know, with other people that's going to be quite engrossing? Or is it just going to be Nintendo being Nintendo? And it's Nintendo being Nintendo. You go in, you're put in a group of 4 people, and then essentially it rewards whoever plays the most, because they get the most points. You know, it's not like an actual Football League format where, you know, let's say there's 20 teams, and then the teams all play each other twice, and then whoever has got the most points at the end, they win. That's not how it goes. And I know it would be hard to do that, but then you could just start DQing people, or, you know, giving the win to someone if they don't show up for their match. And it's just such a lazy way of doing it. It's just throwing people in there, and then whoever manages to play the game the most wins. And it sucks, and it's a shame, because this is how you get the coins, the coins to upgrade your stadium, because you have your own stadium and you can decorate it and stuff like that, which is really cool. But they've had such a missed opportunity with, like I said, the gimmick stadiums, because when they showed 2 stadiums combining, I was like, oh shit, so you could have like half the stadium be a lava stadium where fireballs rain down and not only, you know, hit you, but also your teammates, so it's like a double-edged sword. So, but then they have their half of the stadium which could electrocute you, you know, in some way, or, you know, some sort of gimmick way, and that could have been cool, because it could have been like, the stadium could have been your 5th player, you know, like you have, is it 5? No, it's 5 aside, isn't it? Sorry, it could have been their 6th player. So like, you could have had, you know, you could have had your keeper, and then your 4 outfield players, and then you could have your stadium as like another strategic point to battle other players with. And they just completely dropped the ball on that way. The stadium is essentially just different skins of the exact same stadium. And seeing how this game's been supported, I mean, I could be wrong, but as of now, it just doesn't look like it's going to get that much more than what it's got already, and it's such a letdown, because like, the way the game looks and moves is great. Like, the game plays great, and the characterization from Next Level is Next Level. You know, they're known for their amazing animations on Luigi's Mansion 3, and the characterization and the animations and everything is great here too. I think they've toned down the like edginess and aggressiveness of the game a bit. You know, like characters now like Peach and stuff like that, they're not really angry. They're just sort of like, you know, they kiss up to the crowd and play to their more like known personalities. They're not over the top comically angry like they were in the other 2 games, which I did prefer, just because it was a lot funnier. But they're still great here. The animations are still great. I just don't think there was as many of them as there was in the other games. Like, in the other ones, you had like animations of them coming out into the stadium, and then depending on who they'd be fighting, they'd had different animations for that character. Like Peach and Daisy would have like a little scuffle and stuff like that, but they don't in this game. You know, they don't really have unique interactions with each other like some fighting games do. And I think that really dropped the ball. It seems like this whole game just didn't have as much time that it needed to. And again, it's a classic multiplayer Nintendo game. And you know, if we compare it to a game like Splatoon 3, which I'll be talking about in a bit, that game released Like you could leave that as it was and be happy with the full game. This game, it came out and you were already waiting for stuff to get added to it, and that's just not a good sign at all. And Nintendo's done that with a lot of them, like nearly all the Mario sports games on Switch, and even a bit before that too. And I just really don't like the free update model. I really don't. I wish they'd just have it all in the game from launch. And the only reason they do it now is either because they've rushed the standard game out, so they're just going to rush it out and then add stuff to it later, which is bad. Or they're doing it just so they can market it and continue to market it, like they did with Animal Crossing, for example, where, you know, they'd be like, oh, Halloween's coming, you know, the Halloween update's coming. It's like, why don't you just put it in the game in the first place, then we could log on and just see Halloween in the game. The reason why they want to do it is because they want to market the game still, and when it becomes about the marketing and the out-of-game stuff, and that's affecting the actual game, that sucks, and that's exactly what happened here. And this is the first game, I've got to say, that I'm pretty indifferent to, and going, you know, I don't even know if I want to keep the game, to be honest. I still think the core gameplay is fun. Even like as a party game, because this one is so much more about like the competitive side of it and like just the core gameplay instead of like the fun items and stuff, it's harder to get people who haven't played it before into it, because it's not like a tennis game like Mario Tennis or anything like that. This is one where you sort of have to know what you're doing with it. It's a bit more involved than other Mario sports games, and they haven't done enough to like be accessible, and they haven't done enough to make it as in depth for like dedicated players to keep playing, I think, because I fell off this game super hard like once I found out how bad the Strikers Club was in terms of, you know, just, oh, it's just whoever can play the most that wins, and it didn't really become about anything, because the club versus mode was very much like the open online versus mode where you can just face anyone. That's another thing too as well, is that like I can't remember the specifics of it, but they touted like 4 versus 4 multiplayer, so like you could do on one Switch as well. Can't do that online or something like that. When that's going to be like the main way that people play on this game, it's really weird. It's a really weird game. It's a bit of a botched release, and I think it's definitely one of the more forgettable games that have been released on the Switch, unfortunately. So yeah, a V2 from me. Well, the first one that's gone below V3 in any of my Game of the Year videos. That's how much I dislike the free update model and how much it damaged this game, unfortunately. So next up is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge.
I might just put the voice clip of the guy saying the game on the title screen, because it's one of those where the guy actually says the title of the game you're playing on the title screen. I really missed that. I wish they'd bring back for more games. So, but yeah, with my love of getting back into beat 'em ups with games like Streets of Rage 4 and mainly just Streets of Rage, to be honest, because of the Sega Mega Drive Classic Collection, or whatever it's called. I thought about why not give this one a go, because I'm not a massive TMNT fan, but 20 years this year would have been, yeah, 20 years this year is when I actually got into the series, because I grew up with the 2003 version of the show, which was a bit, I think, more dramatic and darker than the original 80s show, but still tried to like take the best parts of the 80s show, like the humour and the colour and stuff like that. So this actually isn't my TMNT that I know of. You know, like April looks a lot different than she does in this than the 2003 version. I think Casey Jones does as well. And the Turtles also have eyes, or pupils, which kind of freak me out. And Splinter's brown instead of grey, so it's a whole new world for me. But then I saw the gameplay of it, and I believe it has been published by the same, it might have even been developed and published by the same developer and publisher that did Streets of Rage 4.emu. So I thought I had pretty high expectations for this one, because Streets of Rage 4 was and still is the best beat 'em up game that I've ever played. Me and my friend SBO still try and play it occasionally as well, because there's still things to unlock in that game. There's just so much in that game, I would even say, without the DLC that they added in. And that's something that I have to say about this game, is it's fun. It is a very basic beat 'em up game, especially compared to a game like Streets of Rage. There's not much in the way of combos, you know, there's like dodge, there's like I don't think there even is a back attack. I think there's a jump attack, there's like a jump special, a normal special. It is a lot simpler, and I think it might be because it's aimed at a younger audience. Plus, you can play this game with up to 6 players, which is kind of bonkers, to be honest. Me and my friends last summer, we all played through it, 4 of us, and it was a good time. It was a good time. It didn't take us super long to beat. I think it was about 3 to 4 hours. There's about 15, 16 stages in the game, if I remember right. and there isn't much in the way of like extra stuff. You know, it really is just the story that you can play through. There are like extra collectibles you can collect along the way in each level, but you don't have to go out your way for them really. You know, there'll be like a door that's just like banging. All you have to do is go up to the door and you've got the collectibles. So it was very rare that we actually missed anything on the way. And the collectibles don't really give you too much, to be honest, anyway. I don't even remember what they give you, actually. I've got to collect footage of the game, so I might remember then, but I don't really remember it being anything substantial. It's not like you unlock extra levels or a new character or anything like that. The game actually does have a progression in the form of sort of leveling up. You know, it's like the more you play, the more abilities you unlock as your character, but you only ever really unlock like new special abilities. Like you'll unlock a special ability on the ground, then you'll unlock one in the air, and then you'll unlock one where you sort of just go like, you're not invincible, but you go like, your attacks are faster, they do more damage, that sort of thing for a while. I never really liked that one actually. It didn't seem like it was doing as much damage as it could have done. And yeah, I guess there just wasn't as much creativity in the game, but to be honest, we played Streets of Rage 4 afterwards, 4-player, and that game was just way more hectic with 4 players than it is with 2. I do prefer playing it with like lesser players, and I don't think I would say the same for this one though, because this one, even with lesser players, still feels a bit basic. Having more players and just having like fun, frantic, beat 'em up action, I think is the best way to play this game. So I don't think it's as good as Streets of Rage 4, but I think that if I was more of a fan of the 1980s show for TMNT and had played like Turtles in Time, which I played with my friend who had played Turtles in Time, and he said that this was like really similar to it. So it's kind of like a remake or a reimagining, I suppose, of the game. So it was brand new for me, but people who played the original game and were like more of a fan of the original source material, I think this could be like a really, really good game, one of your top ones of the year. I actually really dug the light-hearted tone of this game. You know, I didn't grow up with it or anything like that, so I wasn't pointing at the screen going, "It's him! I know him!" You know, I didn't know anything, but it did give me that massive vibe of like a Saturday morning cartoon, like the little jingle that comes on when you're about to start a chapter. That whole thing just screams Saturday morning cartoon for me. And at the end of the chapter as well, when you know the little cutscene plays and they get away or what have you. That's great, and I think especially for someone a bit younger, they would like love, you know, eat that shit up. So I did like TMNT, but it didn't really stand out in the year compared to the rest of the games that I played. So next in line is Klonoa, the Fantasy Reverie series. Now this is a game that I was actually really excited to get because Klonoa has been on my radar for a fair while, just because the fans of the series are really vocal about how good it is. And my first encounter with Klonoa was a copy of the Wii version years ago. I can't remember when it came out, but I don't think it came out too long after the Wii came out. I think it was around 2007 or 2008, and I remember being really pulled toward the look of Klonoa. I think Klonoa's character design is brilliant, but I remember looking at the back of the box, and the box was showing that it was a 2D platformer or 2.5D platformer, and that turned me off. I was expecting a 3D platformer. I wasn't into 2D platformers at the time at all. I didn't really grow up with 2D platformers, so it felt weird. At the time, when I was like 14 or what have you, it felt weird going to 3D platformers back to 2D ones. I didn't really see what the point of that was. Obviously, I know that now, but back then I didn't. And despite me liking the character design of Klonoa, I didn't bother picking up the game for it, which I wish I did, because that game goes for a lot of money now, the Wii version of Klonoa. But this game is like made it the definitive version to play Klonoa, because it's got all the additions that the Wii version added as well. And it sort of tries to retain, it sort of gives you an option to sort of look like the PS1 version with this filter, but I went back and looked at how the PS1 version looks, and it's a shame really that they couldn't just put like the sprite-based PS1 version in here, for the first game anyway, because that game looks beautiful with the PS1, and I would have loved to have like just have the PS1 version in it. But this game still looks really good as well. Now don't get me wrong, it's not like, you know, God of War, PS5, ray tracing, all that kind of thing, but it's a very solid remaster of two very old games. I think they must be made from the ground up. I can't cite that, but I can't see a way in which they've got like the assets already made. You know, even like the PS2 version of Lunacy's Veil, which is the second game, that looks a lot better here. And to be honest, both games look more like each other. You know, like if you look at the PS1 version of Dord's Phantom Isle, and then you look at the PS2 version of Lunacy's Veil, you can see the jump in quality there in terms of like visual quality. In this game, like they keep the UI a bit like the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy. They keep the UI very like standardized. You know, like it's different, but it's, you know, it's got the same sort of design, the same sort of flair. You know, it's like, oh, one bit will be wood, you know, one bit will be stone, you know, something like that. It's not too different, and I kind of like the fact that it's unified in that way because it feels much more like a a collection. And as for the games themselves, I think they were both really good and solid platformers. Got pretty tricky places as well, especially in some of the secret levels. I think I liked Door to Phantomile significantly more than Lunacy's Veil. I just think the music in that game and the story that Door to Phantomile told was more compelling than Lunacy's Veil, which was still pretty good. I just didn't like it as much as Door to Phantomile, and I don't think that the second game really expanded on the first game's gameplay in any way. Not that it really had to, but I can't really remember any moves or anything like that. It's more about the enemies in Klonoa and the world, because all you do is it kind of like a Kirby way, you use the enemies against them. You don't copy their abilities or anything like that, but you hold them in your wind ring, and then you can jump off them, or you can throw them at something. And usually doing that in quick succession is when Klonoa gets a bit more difficult. But I did really enjoy my time with Klonoa, and I don't want to spoil the story, but it was really surprising for this kind of game, in the same way that Kirby's kind of surprising. If you've played a Kirby game before and finished it, you can be surprised with how the games usually go and the turns they make. This game was also like that, and I think that's one of the reasons why I liked Door to Phantomile more than Lunacy's Veil, just because I think the story stuck with me more. I can't really remember Lunacy's Veil's story that much coming away from it, but I do remember Door to Phantomile's story. Yeah, it's something, and luckily the game isn't super long, do you know what I mean? I went for 100% completion on the game because that's something that I really enjoyed about it, is that you could go for 100% completion. I didn't like how, to get 100% completion, I think it was you had to get 100 crystals in a level, or 100 gems or whatever it is, the little collectible. You don't start a level and have 0 crystals and then have to collect 100. It's got a counter in the corner. You've just got crystals. If you collect 63 crystals in the first level and then jump into the next level, you've still got 63 crystals. So you can't tell if you've actually got all the crystals you need until you beat the level, and that can be very frustrating, because there was definitely times where I had to redo levels a fair few times to get all the crystals. But if you're not bothered about that kind of thing, you can just go through the game, but you will miss out on the extra stuff, especially in the second game, where you have concept art and a sound test and stuff like that. And I think the sound test especially is worth unlocking, especially for the first game, because again, I've still got the lava castle theme in my head. I think that's a brilliant track. I was sat there okay, this slaps, this is a banger. I'd never said slaps before as a compliment, but it slapped. As a collection, I do appreciate that they made it, that they made software for the game, put both games in it. There could be more celebratory stuff in there, unfortunately, and unfortunately it is a case of, is it Sega who did the game? It's Bandai Namco, so it's not the same as Super Monkey Ball or what have you, but they did leave a fair amount of stuff out, so you could download it as DLC. I'm not too sure what the DLC was exactly, but just put it all in the game. It's a celebrate, it's the 25th anniversary of the Klonoa series, so just put it all in there and let fans, soak up all of it instead of trying to squeeze more money out of you. Because I'm pretty sure I think I got this for £35, but you can, on the eShop, it's priced as a full retail game, and I don't know if I agree with that, for a very old 2D platformer. So if you can find it on the cheap, I'd say get it. But it was a surprise to me. It is an older style game. It's not fast-paced like 2D platformers of this era. It's a lot more, it is slower and more methodical, but there's a lot of charm to it, and in the same way that Kirby is. Kirby's got cute monsters, he's a cute character, he's in a colourful world, and that's what Klonoa's like, and I think you'll get a kick out of it if you're into Kirby especially. Okay, next up is Live Alive. I really wish it was called Live Alive. I think that'd be much better. So this is another HD 2D game by Square Enix, and I've been following their HD 2D projects pretty closely. I really enjoyed Octopath Traveler when that came out. When Triangle Strategy came out, I was not really into it, to be honest. I don't think I'm not into strategy games or anything like that, but I guess at the time I just thought it's not really doing anything for me. I'll probably skip this one, so I skipped Triangle Strategy. I saw Live Alive though, and something about it really pulled me in, and I honest to God think it was the visuals. And that's weird to say because HD 2D, it's always going to look brilliant, but Triangle Strategy looks very similar to Octopath Traveler, and it's something that made me worried because I thought HD 2D, Square Enix now are releasing quite a lot of HD 2D games. They're releasing Octopath Traveler 2 next month, they've released Live Alive, they've released Triangle Strategy, and they're releasing a Dragon Quest III remake in the style of it as well. And I remember looking at the trailer for the Dragon Quest III remake, and the battles look Dragon Quest-y, but the rest of it looks a bit too gloomy in the way that Octopath Traveler looked. And it works for that world, but I don't think it works for the Dragon Quest world. So I was kind of scared, really, that I thought that this art style's so good, but I think, have they reached their limit of it already? Like, can it only do those, like, gloomier fantasy, you know, old fantasy settings well? Can it not do anything else? And this game proved me completely wrong, because Live Alive takes place in all sorts of different worlds and all sorts of different time settings, and they all look so unique despite being in this HD 2D engine. And yeah, that has just convinced me that this engine that Square Enix have created can just do, it can do a lot of things. We've still got a lot to see from it. But as for Live Alive itself, it's actually kind of similar to Octopath Traveler in the sense that there's, is it 8 different characters? Hang on, let me just count. Yeah, so there's 8 different characters in the game, and each one is set in a different setting. You know, there's like one in the distant future on the spaceship, there's one in the near future in like a more almost like Earthboundy setting, one in the present day, there's one in the Wild West, there's one in prehistoric times. There's a lot to choose from, and that's what I mean, like every area feels distinct and different. It was a joy to play through. I think that I won't put it with my top RPGs of the year. I think this year had a lot of competition for RPGs. And this one, I think when I come away from it, I was, well, for starters, there's different endings to the game, and I got the bad ending because I think the game is too cryptic with how it wants you to proceed sometimes. Sometimes it will like it'll almost tell you to like leave the area. So you leave the area and it turns out that's not what you were supposed to do. You were supposed to do something else, and it's just weird how it doesn't really let the player know that that's an option. That kind of left me with a bad taste in my mouth coming away from it, but that's, you know, knowing how it's supposed to go, I was like, okay, well, you know, maybe when I play it again. Which is one of those where I did enjoy what I played of it, but I don't know if I will play it again. It was around a 30-hour game, which is not too bad, but especially in this day and age when my time's more constrained, I want to, you know, just play stuff that I really enjoy if I want to play it back over again. But I will probably play like individual chapters over again, because some of them are really interesting, and a lot of them are trying to be different genres within an RPG like this, which is really unique. You know, one of them is more of a tower defense game, not a tower defense mini game. It's like you have to buy stuff and plant traps places so that when your town gets invaded, you can take out the majority of the enemies before you have to fight the big guy, stuff like that. There's one where, one of the ones I was most impressed with was, it's like a Street Fighter rip-off, not a rip-off, but like homage, I suppose. Like, you have a Street Fighter-esque character selection screen come up where you have to choose who you want to fight, a bit like, get a bit like Punch-Out in a way as well, and then you have to fight them in the game's battle system, which is not turn-based like I thought it was going to be. It's more of like a grid system, but it's not really, it is strategy, but it's not like a triangle strategy or a Fire Emblem or anything like that. You know, you've got moves that can affect different ranges, like they can affect the whole floor, they can put enemies to sleep, you can target enemies' weaknesses to like stun them, and it's a good battle system, especially because this is a game that come from like the 90s, I'm pretty sure. So I think for that time period it would have been pretty different, and I really appreciate it now still. I really think it was good. It just didn't, there were some chapters where it got a bit tiring, I will admit. And to be fair, like, one of my favourite chapters was one of the ones where you really don't do that many battles, and it's more of a horror experience, which again, like, is like a genre shift that I was not expecting. The one that felt most like an RPG was probably the near future. You're this kid, I think it's Akira, and you've got like these psychic abilities. That was probably the longest chapter as well, because the chapters do vary in length. And one thing I will say about the game is, when I thought I was close to the end, it turns out I had like another 2 chapters to go, and I was like, oh, okay. And then the last chapter is actually the longest chapter, where everything comes together and you end up, you know, finishing the game. I don't want to spoil the story, but the story did come together in a way that kind of reminded me of Octopath Traveler as well. But this time, luckily, I did actually manage to defeat the final boss, and I thought the story was really quite compelling once you got to that point. You know, each character's individual chapters, their stories do vary in quality, but I mean, the least liked chapter for me was definitely the ninja one. Like, I love the ninja guy, but having to go through that temple in kind of like a Metroidvania style game, I was still learning the game at that point, so I was literally defeating every enemy I went past, and it got quite tiring. Also gets quite tiring because the music, the soundtrack in this game isn't that big, and I don't think the music was especially like incredible. It was good. The only one that I'd say was incredible was the boss theme, which is weirdly enough called Megalomania. But I thought that was an absolutely incredible piece of music, and it gets you pumped up to fight the boss every time. All the other pieces of music though, there just wasn't enough variety to stop you being a bit brain numbing at times. I also thought the voice acting really slowed the pace of the game down. I said in my Octopath Traveler review, or my Octopath Traveler Thoughts many years ago, that I turned the voice acting off because it felt weird that the sprites were speaking and I couldn't really get into it. I just would rather just read the text. This time I left the voice acting on, and the voice acting was decent, but it just slowed down the game a lot because I can already read what's said, you know, as the characters already said it, and it got a bit wordy at points. And I usually love dialogue if it's written well. It's not like I just skip through the dialogue in visual novels, for example, but yeah, it was just a bit wishy-washy sometimes, and it didn't really, it wasn't like the best writing I'd ever seen. So it could have been a bit better, been a bit more engaging, and they could have built up the characters a bit more. But that's the thing about 90s RPGs, you've got to sort of realise that the concept and the story they're telling is great, but like the actual dialogue sometimes can be a bit weak. And I don't know if they reworked it for this remake to be a bit more like modern and what have you, but it missed the mark sometimes. And that's probably one of the reasons why I really like the prehistoric level chapter so much, is the characters don't really speak. You know, they're not incapable of speech, so they just make like animations, and I sometimes prefer that because it kept the story moving and you also knew how they felt and what was going on. So yeah, but yeah, overall Live Alive, a solid game. I did like it. Just, it wasn't my favourite of the year, but I really appreciated some of the things it did. It really surprised me in that way. So next up is the biggest game of the year for me by far, and that is Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Now, I've actually already talked about this game pretty extensively over the year. You can go watch my spoiler thoughts on the game, and you can also watch the spoiler thoughts podcast that me, SBO and Gavin did. So for that reason, I'm not really going to delve into it too deep here. For me, it was one of the best games of the year, and also one of the most disappointing, just because my hopes for it was so high that I might have set myself up for failure, to be honest. And as much as I absolutely adore the game, I do love it. It is significantly lower than the other two numbered entries for me, which is really, it's hard to say honestly, because like through this game I was just having such a good time and I was so in it. It's the thing I've been the most into in probably since the second Xenoblade game. Like, you know, game wise, like I'm in it, I'm there, and I come away from it feeling a bit deflated, to be honest, because I just don't think it hit everything that it needed to. Story wise, you know, gameplay wise, it's easily the best in the series. It takes the best things about the first and second game and combines them literally sometimes into just the best amalgamation of a Xenoblade game we've got yet. I think the world wasn't as interesting as the other two games, but it was still a joy to explore, especially because it was taking elements of the first and second games as well. I don't think overall it really made use of the fact that it was combining elements of the first and second games. I don't think it took it to the extent it should have gone. But the story is still very heartwarming. It's still, you know, the characters are still absolutely brilliant. The voice acting is amongst the best in the series. The lip syncing, which I actually haven't mentioned yet, I don't think, in my spoiler thoughts or my podcast review, but the lip syncing, the English lip syncing that they did, it almost makes it hard to go back and play the other two games, because it changed the game that much in terms of being immersed in that. Doesn't always hit the mark, but like they've done such a good job with it where you don't really think about it afterwards. It's only when you go and look at how the first and second game did the lip syncing that you're like, oh boy, we're in for the long haul here. And it does pay me also to say that my thoughts on this game aren't exactly complete yet, because we haven't got the story DLC, which is coming later this year in 2023. It's disappointing for me to say that as well, because I thought that Xenoblade 2 was just a masterpiece on its own without Torna, you know, coming later on. Torna was just an absolute treat. It was a bonus. Here it feels like, you know, the icing's been left off. I actually don't like the icing, so that analogy is probably not the best for me, but yeah, you see what I'm saying. It doesn't feel like all the ideas have been explored yet, and my full verdict on this game has to wait really until the DLC comes out, which I don't like saying. I wish the game felt all done with already and then the DLC was like a bonus again, but unfortunately that's not the case this time. But it's a hard game for me to talk about because I actually don't think I'm getting across how much I enjoyed it. Like, I really did love it. I really did enjoy it. It's just, I think when you love something so much, it's easier to see the flaws in it, and this game for me has a lot of them, but I still loved it anyway. But if you do want to go see my full thoughts on the game, go and watch one of those 2 videos. But for now, I still definitely loved it. It's just a disappointment for me. So next up is the only real multiplayer game I played this year, and that is Splatoon 3. Now, of course, I did play like Mario Strikers and what have you, but Splatoon 3 is the main one that I played. I put in, I think, about 150 hours into the game since it's come out, and that was only in September, and it's end of January now. So, you know, in a few months, I put in a lot of time into the game, and I loved a lot of it, to be honest. It's not about its flaws, but I have loved a lot of it. I've been a fan of Splatoon since the original, way back in 2015. Me and I think it was 2 or 3 of my friends, I think it was 2 of us, I think it was me, Tom and Joe. We ended up staying up until 5 in the morning just to try out the Splatoon Global Test Fire, which was the first demo for Splatoon. You could only play it at certain times. It was like a rotation sort of thing. I think you could play it for like 2 hours or something. You could play like a rotation. But we had a really good time with it. I mean, the Wii U had like big game droughts, and that year, 2015, I only really remember Splatoon and Xenoblade X coming out, and Splatoon was like the summer game, and then Xenoblade X was the winter game. So it was a big release for the system, and one of the newest, and not like Nintendo released more new IP than I think people realise, but this was like a major one that they were really pushing, and it was just so full of creativity and just felt, you know, so fresh, pardon the pun. Yeah, I had a great time with Splatoon, and even though the people that I played with that were close to me weren't too interested in getting like really good at the game, I really wanted to get good at the game. You know, I managed to get to, I think I got to S rank, but that's when I started finding out that the internet is, I mean, I don't even want to call it the internet, it's more like the connection to certain regions, because once I got to the upper echelon of the ranked modes, all I found was Japanese players, and it always felt like they had the advantage. Like, Japanese players are good anyway, don't get me wrong, like, Japan's obviously like the most popular, Splatoon's the most popular in Japan, so, you know, it's going to have a higher skill level there. But even with that, it just felt unfair. Like, it felt like I was getting shot through walls. It felt like I was trading with guns or weapons that I was not supposed to be trading with. I was losing to weapons that I should have outright beat. So yeah, it sucked in that regard, and it really made it difficult. And it was like one of the most hair-tearing gaming experiences I've had, just trying to get to S+ rank. And I think I got to S+ rank on some of the modes, but it must have dropped down, and then I was like, you know what, I'm just going to leave it now. And that was one of the big shames, is that the ranked mode, it was like a double-edged sword, because it was so punishing. When you got to a high rank, you were like, holy shit, I can't believe I've done it. But then, you know, you would lose it so quickly that it sort of put you off playing. So I got really a high rank and then just said, yeah, I'm going to leave it there, because it didn't feel like I could get better, because it felt like the internet was holding me back. And to be honest, like I think up until about A rank, I was really decent at being a scout or being like on the front foot, being quite aggressive. And then because the connection with the Japanese players was so bad, it wasn't like stuttery, it was, or you know, or input laggy or anything like that. It was just like you're shooting someone, and then they somehow kill you. It's like they've always got like a second advantage. It's really weird. I transitioned from more of a aggressive player to a support player, and you know, that's sort of what I had to do. And that's but that is one of the beauties of Splatoon, is that you're not, you know, some weapon classes aren't exactly like, I mean, they are more tailored to support and stuff, but even with like a shooter weapon, which is a bit more aggressive, you can be a support player. You know, you don't have to be good at shooting and splatting people. You can, you know, ink turf and control the area, and that can be your role, instead of having to be good at like hand-eye coordination and shooting people and that. So that's one of the genius things about Splatoon, is you know, as long as you've got cool people who are like really quick with the sticks and agile and stuff, you can have 2 players who like aren't really that good, but they're good at like just helping you out and controlling the ground. And yeah, it's one of the funnest things in Splatoon, getting into the ink and speeding around in ink form. So it's like it is a genius concept, like, you know, one of Nintendo's classic genius concepts, and I really enjoyed Splatoon. And Splatoon 2, I think, really fixed a lot of the issues that I had with the first one. I think the first one also had like just a very decent story mode, but there wasn't anything really beyond that. Splatoon 2 is like a better Splatoon in every way. I think Splatoon had, you can see it, especially with Splatoon 2 and 3's maps. The original Splatoon maps are so like vertical and weird, whereas the ones in Splatoon 2 and 3 are definitely better for, you know, competitive play in that, and they're just better maps in general, but they are less unique and interesting and quirky. So I'm glad that some of the Splatoon 1 maps have come back in Splatoon 3. But yeah, Splatoon 2 was just a better Splatoon 1 in every way. I didn't really have any I didn't really have that many connection issues, to be honest. Like, sure, sometimes, you know, you would connect to Japanese players and that second advantage still seems to be present, but not as bad as it was before. And I also didn't experience as many disconnections as I did in the first game. I just think that the second game was just so much better overall in every way. And although it released and it had a very weird limitation on Salmon Run, which is a really cool new mode, I overall, by the end of its release, even though I really despised the free update model, I think that it became the best Splatoon game. And right now, Splatoon 2, you know, with all that content and stuff, is probably still the best Splatoon game. But Splatoon 3 still comes very close. You know, if not for a few things, it probably would be the best Splatoon game already, because it actually has released with quite a bit of stuff in the game, which is something that the first game, especially, and the second game didn't release with. You know, both launches for the first game and second game were very bare. Splatoon 3 has actually got, at launch, it's already had a few updates, but at launch it had, I think it had 12 maps or something, so that's a decent amount to keep you going for a while. It had all the weapons that were in 2 and the first game. The only ones that you didn't really get variations. Like, you can get certain variations of each weapon which have a different sub-weapon, and is that it? Yeah, different, you have main, sub and special, that's it. So it has a different sub and special, so that you can have like the NZAP 85, which has, you know, a suction bomb and the tacticooler, but then you can have the NZAP 89, which has like a sprinkler and an ink strike or something. You only had one variant of each weapon, but you still had a lot of weapons to choose from in Splatoon 3. So, you know, if they didn't actually update Splatoon 3 at all, I think it probably wouldn't last as long as it would if they actually did update it, but it was more than enough to make me happy at launch. Obviously, still don't like the free update model. One of the reasons why I've sort of dropped off it, because it's a game that, and this is what a lot of multiplayer games do nowadays, is, I mean, some people say, you know, why would you spend like 80 hours on a single player RPG? Literally, the multiplayer games like this are designed to keep you playing for thousands of hours, and, you know, that's a bit more than 80. So, but, you know, Splatoon 3 has done a lot of quality of life improvements. It's easier than ever to get the abilities that you want. In the first game, that was like completely random. It was ridiculous. The second game improved that as well, but here it's been improved even more, so you can get the ability chunks that you want and get the exact gear that you want without having to spend like hundreds of hours on the game. I think the single player campaign is the best in the series by far. They sort of experimented with like a hub world where you explored and found like secret items, and then you had the levels that were more like the ones from Splatoon 1 and 2. Splatoon 2 had like the secret items within the levels. This time they sort of split them off, and I actually really like that, because you get to an area, explore a bit, and then just binge the levels. And the levels are really creative too. Some of them are like really quirky, where you have to do it without a weapon, but you can do it with a sub-weapon or a special, so yeah, it was really good. Unfortunately, the one thing holding Splatoon 3 back majorly is just the sheer amount of disconnects. When the game first launched, the disconnects were quite bad. I mean, it was even worse than the test fire right here. I didn't try that out, but it was quite bad. Like, you disconnect a lot in this game. It's just not stable at all. It's way worse than it was in Splatoon 2, and even the first game, I think. You know, the lag and the actual connection with other players, I think, is just as good as Splatoon 2, but the actual disconnects, the frequency of the disconnects is awful, and it really does like put you off playing the game. I remember I had one where, especially in this game now, because if you disconnect within the first minute, the match will just end. You know, if one or more players disconnect within the first minute, the match will just end. And I had one where, I think it was like 3 or 4 in a row, someone disconnected, and because someone sees someone disconnected and like, I'm not playing a disadvantage, so then they disconnect as well, you just don't play. And I remember like, it happened like 4 times, and I was like, I guess I'm just not playing. And then I turned it off and played something else. It is really bad, and it does need, like, even with all these updates and what have you, it doesn't seem like they're prioritising like the stability of the game, because you're getting all this, you're still getting all this stuff in the game, but you're not actually like stabilising the game to make it run better in terms of, you know, getting just having secure connections. I understand people disconnect all the time, it's not always the game's fault, but the sheer frequency of disconnects is crazy, and it happens to me, it happens to my friends, and we've all got good enough connections to continuously play the game. Some days you go and you don't have any disconnections at all, but then sometimes it's a pain in the ass. I think the ranking system on the game is different. I haven't got to X rank yet, I don't even know if that's been released, but the ranking system on the game is different. Splatoon 2's ranking system was already a lot more forgiving than the first game. This one, you can probably play it and not even care about your rank, because it's inevitable that you will rank up. You get so many more points for winning than you do for losing. It used to be the opposite. You used to lose more points for losing than you would for winning. I think it makes it more accessible for people to play ranked, because I've always said that the ranked modes in Splatoon are the best bit about it. I think Turf War is alright, but then if you get used to playing Clan Blitz and Tower Control and Splat Zones, the game just becomes so much more alive, and you can appreciate it you appreciate all the little things about it so much more. And because it's a ranked mode, a lot of times people get put off on it because, you know, in Turf War, you just play. It's like a very casual mode, you're not losing anything. In ranked mode, you can lose points and go down ranks and stuff like that. I just think that, you know, more people should be able to play the ranked modes freely. I wouldn't mind you being able to play the ranked modes freely, because I'd still do ranked anyway. But at least give people the option to play these modes, and that's something that Splatoon's always been, is very restrictive. You know, Salmon Run in Splatoon 2 was so restrictive. I think it used to be every 12 hours or something. They actually extended it, so it was like every 16 hours or something, so you got to play it more. Thankfully in Splatoon 3, you can play you can play Salmon Run whenever you want. There's no restriction on it, which is ace. That is one of the biggest improvements, and it makes me wonder, it's like, if they can realise that that wasn't a good thing to restrict that, why are they still restricting 2 maps per rotation and stuff like that? It's something we're used to now, but I still think you should just be able to vote on a map that you want to play, and then play that map. You know, there isn't really like a stable meta. You know, like, if there was a map that was super good for charges, for example, and it was so easy to get wins on that with charges than any other map, people would probably just spam charges and pick that map all the time. But I just think you need to have some, like, variety and options, and that's something Splatoon has always lacked, and it still lacks here, unfortunately. Quick shout out to the visuals and music. They're not that much better than Splatoon 2, but you can see that there is more lighting effects and stuff like that. The music's also incredible too. Splatoon music has always been great. I do really miss the rhythm game though that you could play in Splatoon 2 in the lobby. There's like a little rhythm game and a sound test. There isn't anything like that in Splatoon 3 from what I've seen. Although the extra stuff in Splatoon 3, like the lockers that you can decorate, and you can get like a load of items to put in your locker and show to other players. That was a genius move. You know, it's like a cosmetic change that isn't really a cosmetic change. It's just showing off what you can collect in the game. You can even collect like fake games that look like Donkey Kong Country, and have a little game collection in there with a few little Switch games, or the boxes for like the Japanese GameCube games. I love that. That's all I've got in my locker. I love that stuff. There's also Table Turf Battle as well, a new mini game. It's a new card mini game in the game. It's weird at the moment. Like, I hear like the buzzwords or buzz mechanics for games seem to be like crafting and card games. Like, for some reason there's cards in every game, there's crafting in every game. Just throw a card game in it, yeah, that'll do. But it is actually really quite fun when you actually realise how to play table turf. It is actually really fun, and there are some prizes for doing well. You know, you can either play against other players' decks, or you can play against CPUs, you know, actual characters in the game. It would have been nice if you. I don't know if you can actually play directly, you know, one-on-one with people with table turf, because I'm pretty sure when you play people in the lobby, for example, you're playing against their deck, you know, controlled by a CPU. You're not playing against the actual player. So I'm not actually too sure, because I haven't actually dabbled that much in table turf. And this is the thing, like, I've put 150 hours into the game. You know, I beat the story mode. I've played a lot of multiplayer. I haven't played too much of table turf, and I still haven't played that many. You know, I haven't played much spot zones or anything like that. I've mainly stuck to clan blitz and tower control. So there's still a lot in the game that I can go back to and have fun with. And Splatoon has always been a game that I have in phases. You know, I play in phases. You know, in like a year or two or a year and a half, what have you. I'll come back to this game and have a good like couple months on it, because Splatoon is just it's just naturally so fun. I will quickly mention as well before we move on that one of the things about Splatoon 3 that has turned me off playing it more is the fact that it does a thing that a lot of other live service games do, and that's split up. It's like updates into seasons. I think the first season was like the drizzle season, and then the second season was the chill season. And when the chill season moved over, I think I was on like A+ rank or something, and I said I'm going to get to S+ rank, and then I'll stop playing for a bit, because, you know, I've got other games to play. So when you switch over seasons though, your rank like sort of gets adjusted. So my rank reset, like not down to B, but I think it went down to A-, and I was like, oh, so you don't get to keep your rank if you just leave the game for a bit. You don't just get to come back and jump straight back in, you know, to where you were. Your rank goes down when you leave it, and that obviously encourages you to constantly keep playing. And I was like, I don't like that, and I don't like it. I see why they've done it, but I don't like it. And when I saw that, I was demotivated to continue, so I haven't played the game much since. I played some of the Splatfest, which, oh my god, the Splatfest this time round, for those who don't know, it's like an online event where You can only play Turf War, but all the stages are at night, and you pick there's a question that's asked, like, do you prefer chocolate, sweets, or spicy food? And you pick one, and then your team, you have to help your team out, win the most battles, and whoever wins the most battles, whoever gets picked the most, it all adds up into like whoever wins the Splatfest, and you get prizes from that. But the Splatfest this time around is so much more competitive than they used to be, I swear to God. And obviously that means a lot of people playing it, there's a lot of disconnections around. Splatfest this time have been very frustrating, whereas in the first game and the second game, it always felt like this really casual weekend that people were just playing Splatoon with, but oh my God, yeah, it's really competitive this time. I kind of like to see it because I'm more of a competitive player, I like more the competitive aspect more than most. But yeah, it's still unfortunate, especially because this new mode that they've added, the tricolour mode. Luckily, you can actually choose not to do it, but I don't know if I've played enough of it to really like get the hang of it. But it just seems a bit unbalanced in a way. It seems like really frantic, and for a mode that is like being played quite competitively, it seems a bit weird to throw in something that frantic. It's still fun, but it's just a bit weird in a way, and I don't know, I think some tinkering is going to need to be done to really like make it as fun as the other modes, because right now I have much more fun just playing the normal game than I did playing the tricolour one. So overall, Splatoon 3, I've got to give it, a V4 out of V5. I would give it a V5 if it's, its problems that honestly Splatoon's always sort of had, mainly to do how restrictive it is to its players. If it gave you more options, just let you do what you want a bit more, it would be up there with my favourite games of the year. But right now, I still have a lot of fun with Splatoon, still a fantastic game, I really liked it. Next is Anno Mutationum. So this is one of those games on the eShop, a bit like Katana Zero, where I just saw it and was like, that looks really kind of unique and interesting. Let's give that a go. It was £20 at the time though, and I thought, I don't really, I've got other games to play, I'll stick it on my wish list and wait for a sale, and that is what I did. So what drew me to the game was the way it looks. It's like sprites, but in like a 3D space, like a bit of like low poly 3D, but with, with sprites, and it's a very unique look, and the look of the game is absolutely incredible. The developers, okay, it's published by Thinking Stars. Yeah, I never heard of them before, but they've created like such a fantastic looking game. And to be honest, like the whole game kind of reminds me of my thoughts on Eastwood, if you remember my review from, was it last year or the year before? But yeah, it reminds me of that game where it looks absolutely incredible. The lighting effects, it runs quite well on the Switch. There's a couple frame drops here and there, but it's not too bad. The loading screens are quite long, I'll give it that. The loading screens are a bit long, but the game just looks incredible and runs like buttery smooth for the most part. But the flaws for this game are mainly to do with its story. It's just a bit all over the place, to be honest. The story is about this girl, Anne, who you play as, and she's sort of like a contractor for the police, so she'll do jobs that the police can't be asked to do, or it's like a low level one they can't do, or one they don't have the time for. So you're doing that, but to be honest, the game doesn't really explore that side of Anne's life. I think you do like 2 jobs for the police, and then every time someone brings it up, I'm like, oh yeah, I am. I forgot about that. So, but the main thing is you're trying to find her brother Ryan, who has disappeared because Anne has this like condition where when she's fighting, she'll like sort of go a bit haywire and just go mental. And I think they called it Ingolitis or something like that, intangibilitis. Anyway, Ryan's gone off to try and find this thing called N540, which is rumoured to cure her. So the whole game is essentially you trying to find your brother, and it leads you through different areas, and sort of weaves into a bigger storyline that honestly doesn't seem to go anywhere. It just seems to sort of buckle a bit. It introduces a lot into the game and then doesn't really close it off very well. I mean, a lot of it, one of the reasons why I struggle to really follow the story a lot is because a lot of it is told through like text logs that you find. There's like biological science labs that you go through and caves and stuff, and you'll find like notes and computers and stuff that you'll read on there. But one of the things that really like disinterested me, like especially halfway through the game, because I thought they should have started clearing this up, is the amount of stuff that's redacted from this kind of thing. They blank out so many words and phrases and stuff, even at the end of the game. So you still don't really have a clear picture of what's going on. It bugs me so much, because I thought at one point you get like an ability or something, so you could like hack into it and like actually read what was put. The stuff like that is redacted, it's got like the text saying redacted, so there's no way you could do that, but just covering up the words, surely there's a thing you could do where you could like remove that. That was really frustrating, and it just, when I saw like sometimes there's like paragraphs of just blocks that you can't read, I'm just like, it's either, did they just not put the text in time in the game, or is that actually how it's supposed to look? And it's a big shame too, because like there are some really, like, I will admit, like I would say like 5 hours in, I didn't realise how long the game was. It's about 20 hours, but about, you know, a few hours in, I was just sort of like playing the combat, because the combat is absolutely brilliant. It's like you have investigative 3D aspects of the game, so that when you're investigating it's in 3D, and then when you go into like rooms where you'll end up fighting, it's in 2D. I would have liked to have seen how it would have worked in 3D, but I think the 2D combat is just so good that I didn't really mind. You know, there's a bit of platforming in there as well. Eventually you'll get like an air dash and, you know, other moves. It's quite slow at the beginning, but then when you get all your moves, you've got like a skill tree that you can upgrade and get more moves. And yeah, it's a very satisfying action RPG in that way. The characters as well are okay. There isn't too many memorable ones. Obviously you've got Anne. I really like Anne. I think she's just like she's only got one thing on her mind, and that's saving her brother. So when all these other things are popping up, and she's sort of like, she doesn't say no, because she's like, she wants to help people out, but you can tell that she's literally thinking, I'm only doing this because it will help serve me find my brother. She doesn't care about the bullshit that's going on with like the consortium or all the convoluted stuff that I didn't really care about by the end of the game. She didn't care about it either, so I related to her very much. It's just all about the family, and that's something I really liked in this game, was the family dynamic, and it's something that I wish they delved more into, because you've got Anne. Yeah, they're all adoptive. It's adoptive family. You've got Anne, you've got her adoptive dad, who you don't really know much. You sort of read a log about his backstory, but this is the kind of thing that I think should have maybe been inserted into the narrative in some way. So you don't really know what happened to him to make him want to adopt these kids, but you know there was some sort of incident. And he's also roboticized himself. This is something else I didn't really get about the game, is there's this thing called the Mechanica virus, where it starts turning people into machines. But some people can actually just get a mechanical makeover to turn them into like a robot, but it's not a virus, you know, you don't lose your mind or anything, which is what the Mechanica virus does. And he decides to adopt these kids, and that was one of the most interesting parts of the game, is hearing about their childhood and like the different ways that they went. Anne was like just a bit of a brute, to be honest. She was very protective of Ryan, who was a younger brother and a bit of a weakling. Didn't really stick up for himself or anything like that, so Anne was always there to stick up for him. There's Nakamura, who ended up going into like modelling and has come back and is running the bar now, with the family bar. And then there's their oldest sister, Helen, who is just not in the game really at all until like the very end. You know, sometimes you think, does she even exist, or is this just a lie made up by the dad or something? Yeah, there's just I don't know if they're planning to make a sequel to the game, but there's just the elements of it that just don't feel very finished. I mean, I talked about, you know, spoilers throughout this video, but you know, I'm going to talk about the ending here. Apparently they had to patch the game, because originally the ending was so like abrupt. I played the patched version of the game, because the game come out something like September, and I played the game earlier this month. So when I beat the game, you have like an ending with Anne and her friend Ayane, who's one of the other main characters of the game, who can get a bit annoying, but she means well, and I didn't really mind her too much like halfway through the game. I sort of got used to her, but at the start you were like, oh right, okay, and like I think she's got a bit of a thing for Anne. I never knew if it was like genuine romantic feelings, or if she was just being like really overly friendly to like tease Anne. I never knew which way it was going, but nothing really ever comes of it, so it doesn't really matter. There's this thing about Ayane wanting to see the sea, because she can't exit her room, so she follows Anne round in this like little data ball, because she's like a genius hacker or something. Then by the end of the game, you know, they take her out and she sees the sea, and that's where the game ends. And it was like, that was a nice ending for like those two characters. But then you think about like all the stuff the Consortium was doing, because there's this thing about Anne's got this ability to enter another world, and the Consortium wanted to enter this other world, but then there's like a rogue faction within the Consortium that wants to steal something from this other world, and then this other world is home to another Anne who's like sadistic, and that's where her entanglitis comes from or something. That whole thing though is like, it's so drawn out over the game, and like I said, there's just so much text that you can't read, that you'd probably be able to like get interested in and like intrigued about if you could actually read it. But because you can't, you're just in the dark for like all of the game until the end. There's two different endings to the game. The more obvious ending, the one that you will end up doing, the final boss is so easy. It's so easy. Like you fought the final boss, and then you actually fight the final boss, and you're like, it kind of reminded me of the Final Fantasy VII fight with Sephiroth, not the one with the one-winged angel Sephiroth, but the one afterwards, which isn't really a fight. It's just there to convey a cutscene essentially. And this fight felt like that as well, even though it could have been like a really good boss fight. So I've got to say a special shout out to the soundtrack as well. I think the soundtrack it's not like Katana Zero or Hotline Miami. You know, it's a bit more subdued, but some of the songs are really good. And I actually went and bought the bonus stuff for the game, which gave you like a digital art book because some of the art in the game is fantastic. It gave you a digital art book, it gave you the digital soundtrack, and it also gave you some bonuses in the game. I will say that as much as the art is great, I think the cover art for the game isn't that good. I don't think it represents the game. I just don't think Anne looks like in character. Like, I don't think she looks like her character model. Like, I think that I don't know how she should look, just not maybe like that. Like, I think everyone else behind her looks great, but she looks too different to how she sort of looks in the game. And that's another thing I need to say about the game is, holy shit, the bugs and the script and the localization of the game is bad. The game is one of the more buggier games that I played this year. I don't really remember having any soft locks or anything like that, but you'll end up going through objects that have no collision. There's text that doesn't really appear. At one point, Anne disappeared. I know you could only see it in the split-second clip, but she's supposed to be there where the exclamation mark comes up and she's not there. There's times where it got better toward the end of the game, but toward the start of the game, Ayane and Anne, when they speak with their voice acting, which I do think is pretty stellar, their portraits come up and they speak, but sometimes the wrong portrait will stay highlighted and the person is still speaking, but it's actually the other person speaking, so it doesn't make any sense. And I was there like, hang on a minute, oh, it's Ayane, because you see the little subtitle at the bottom, but if you didn't have the subtitles, you'd be lost. You'd be like, hang on a minute, who is this? And another thing, like I said, the biggest thing is the script. Like, it is so, there is typos galore. There's typos all over the shop, and you have to sometimes decipher what is being said. It honestly feels like one of those RPGs in the early 90s that got localized, and it was just localized so badly. It was almost like put through an AI generator and then just chucked into the game, and that's what this game feels like. The script is just not even the script. The script might be fine I think it's a Chinese developer. I could be wrong, but in its original language, it's probably fine. But you know, in English, it's not been localized very well. I've got loads of examples of just things just not making sense, and you have to sort of. It's not even like stylized broken English or anything like that either. It's just like wrong words or a typo or words are missing, and you're like, oh, hang on a minute. So it is bad, and it does pull you out of the game a lot. I've collected like a few clips of this happening. Believe me when I say it happens so much more. I only started collecting clips halfway through the game. I missed so much. But despite all that animation, I think I heard someone call it a flawed gem, and I think that is a good way of putting it. The story is. It is intriguing, and parts of it I do like, but like I said, like Eastward, it just didn't elaborate on a lot of the stuff that it probably should have done, like the main story stuff. It was more like about the characters, but even then I don't think that the characters really had that much. It just didn't split its time evenly. It really struggled to know where to focus, I think. The script is obviously, the localization is not good. It's not as bad as those old RPGs from the 90s. You know, you can still decipher what's being said, but the amount of mistakes is not really excusable, I don't think. And I played it after these patches, and it hasn't really fixed the game. The soundtrack is great, the visuals are like stunning, like that's what made me interested in the game, and I don't regret my purchase because of that, because it is a stellar looking game. Yeah, it is a flawed gem. Go into it knowing that it has got some flaws, but you will have a lot of fun with it. Like the gameplay as well, like investigating and looking what's on screen and the combat, it's all great stuff. So yeah, I'll be definitely playing this one again, I think. I think I'll probably skip through some of the story segments, but like the exploration and the combat and stuff, it was good stuff. I enjoyed it. Oh boy, this one is a big one. It's one that I was just so excited to finally come to the Switch, and it is the longest single player RPG, you know, just to get through the main story I've ever played, and that is Persona 5 Royal. So, you know, being honest, two games that I thought would be up for Game of the Year this year would be Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and Persona 5 Royal. It was going to be between those two. I just knew that, you know, two massive RPGs that I am so into. I was introduced to the Shin Megami Tensei franchise with Shin Megami Tensei 5 last year. That was so close to being my Game of the Year. Persona 5 coming out, yeah, Persona's been just... It's been such a big hole on the Switch. Like, it should have been on the Switch years ago, but they must have had some deal with Sony or something. But it's finally come out. We finally got it. In fact, Persona 3 and 4 come out on the Switch a couple of days ago. But this one's finally out, and it's a joy to play. It really is. It's for sure one of the best RPGs I've played, and I got told for years it is one of the best games ever made, and I can certainly see why. The concept of it is just brilliant. It is so intriguing. You find a way into people's subconsciousness, and it reminded me a bit of Inception in a way, and I think that's why, because I really like that idea of playing with people's consciousness and just delving into why we think the things we do and, you know, what can affect our subconsciousness, and this like turns it into these palaces, for example. So they manage to get into this world where they can see if people have these distorted desires, and they take the place in form of this palace. So, you know, depending on what your distorted desire is, it depends what you see, you know, your workplace as. You know, one of them, the first one in the game, is a gym teacher who sees the school as his kingdom, and he's the king, and what he says goes. It's quite dark as well, Persona. Like, I gotta say, like, especially the first chapter, like, I think, to be honest, it gets like less dark as it goes on. The first chapter though, whole book, like, it deals some heavy topics. You know, you've got like suicide, sexual harassment, and to be fair, even like a teacher having his way with students. So it's like, fucking hell, yeah, it's dark, but it's dealt with, like, it's got such a like uplifting tone. Like, no matter what goes wrong, like no matter all the awful things that happen, it's still, I can't really explain that. The tone of the game is just really happy. It's not like a Dragon Quest happy or anything like that, but it feels like jovial, it feels like optimistic and what have you. Like, no matter what can go wrong, there's always a way to work yourself through it and stuff. And I mean, that's a big thing of like any JRPG and anime kind of thing, you know, it's always about moving on, you know, working hard, all that jazz. But yeah, Persona does it really well, I think. Like, it doesn't go too dark into like these like, honestly awful things about not even like the first chapter, but like just many other things that are going on. You know, there's corruption in the government and stuff like that, like just all that sort of thing. It's like really dark stuff, but yeah, I think that the way that it's dealt with the subconscious and what have you is just really interesting. You know, you meet this cat, Morgana, who sort of teaches you how the way palaces work. Now, the game has a massive story, so I won't like fully, you know, detail all the plot details here, but it is a long story. And like I've said before, you know, leading into this, it is the longest single-player game I've played for an RPG. It took me about 165 hours to fully beat this game, and yeah, it got a bit. I definitely got a bit burnt out by the end, I will say. But before we go into that, let's just you know, spiel about how good this game is for a bit, because the writing is top notch. You know, especially, you know, just me talking about Anu Mutationum. The writing is top notch. The voice acting is brilliant. All the characters feel so genuine. A lot of them are very quirky, but like, it's just, I don't know, you can't help but feel really endeared to these characters. There's one that I really enjoy. I really liked Futaba's arc. I absolutely loved seeing her sort of come out of her shell, interacting with the world in her own quirky way. She had like such a good dynamic to the group. I think that the group is like most JRPGs, like such a group of misfits, but they work together so well, and they're all under like this one common goal. And you get to really dive deep into your relationship with each of these characters via, you know, social stats and mini games you can play together. And the game is absolutely stuffed with stuff to do. Like, obviously it's going to be for like 165 hours, but I think it's stuff to do because unlike most JRPGs, like the side stuff is sort of required for you to carry on. Like the stuff that would normally be side stuff in other RPGs, like, you know, speaking to certain characters or doing fetch quests and stuff. Not really fetch quests in this game, to be fair, but all that is stuff that you have to do. You have to do that. It's not boring or anything like that, because it's all about improving your relationships with different characters and stuff, and hearing their backstories. And honestly, it's more of a visual novel RPG than like just a normal action RPG, not even action RPG because it's turn-based, but like a normal RPG. And it's all about the world you explore, it's about finding places, and it is about the exploration as much as like the story and the characters and stuff. Persona does have like exploration, you go around cities and exploring new areas and stuff, but it really is about the relationship between the characters. There's a lot of dialogue in the game, like so much of it, but the amount that's voice acted to like make it just more engaging is incredible. Like, it is on just the appreciation for a game level. This is blown me away. Just the amount of work that had to go into this game, the amount of like different areas that there are, the amount of different like just stuff in the game that you see, like models and that, the amount of mini games in the game, the amount of just stuff you can do that I can guarantee now. I've played 165 hours. If I played the game again, there'll be a lot of other stuff I do, because I didn't really do much of a lot of the optional stuff. I don't think I even touched the fishing minigame once, which is something that you can do. There's so many items in the game, there's just so many avenues you can go down, and that's not even to talk about the party members of the game, because in Shin Megami Tensei, for example, the demons of the S&T series, they are your party members. In Persona, they are like creatures that you can recruit that you can use, because your party members have personas of their own. They have like demons of their own that are exclusive to them, whereas you are a trickster and you can use any number of demons. So it's like a different way of building your party, and it's a bit like Pokemon. You can go through the game with a different set of monsters each time, a different set of demons. So that replayability is there, and the battle system is also fantastic too. It's very similar to Shin Megami Tensei's battle system, but not quite. I don't think it's as high risk, high reward. It's a bit more balanced in that way. Balanced as in, you know, it's like, oh, if you do this really well, you're going to get this much, but if you mess it up, you're going to lose this much. Persona's more like, you know, if you do it well, you get this much, and, you know, it's very like middle of the road. One thing I will say about the battle system is I don't like it when RPGs sort of don't let your strategies that you can do to smaller enemies, they won't let it work on bigger bosses. So, you know, in Persona 5 you've got like the baton pass system, where if you hit an enemy's weakness, you can pass to another character, and then their attacks will get stronger, and, you know, SP will recover and stuff like that. You can't do that really against bosses, because not a lot of bosses have weaknesses. So a lot of the time the bosses seem to come down to you just like, you know, spamming your attack up and then hitting it with the strongest move that you can do. There are criticals you can still do to try and like pass the baton around and stuff like that, but a lot of the bosses apparently were reworked in Royal, because I'll come on to that in a minute, but a lot of the stuff you can do in the regular battles to like really feel like you can exploit the strengths of your personas and your party members, you can't really do that too much in the boss battles, and that's a big shame, because they're like the enemies that you really want to try out these high-powered moves on, and really like want to feel like you've broken the game. I played it on normal, so like the designated difficulty. It wasn't a very hard game, and that will lead me on to say that Royal added so much stuff into the game. It added so much content and quality of life improvements that it's almost like a pseudo reimagining or remake of the original Persona 5. I didn't realise how much it added. I thought it was like maybe an extra scenario or something, but it adds two new confidant characters which are vital to the game's last arc. Weirdly enough, I got to the game's last arc in Royal. It was actually that arc that made me feel like this game is going on a while now. Like, I never thought I'd complain about the length of the game, but this game, I'm getting a bit burnt out now. Like, I could do with finishing it and maybe moving on. And it's not like Dragon Quest XI-S, where there's a whole like post game of that, which is incredible. But I do think if I didn't stop after the ending of Dragon Quest XI, if I didn't stop and just kept on going and played all the post game, I think I would have felt burnt out on that game too. But because I stopped, took some time away from it and come back, I end up loving it when I come back to the game. Persona 5, I didn't feel like I could do that for, because there was never any lull in the story. There's always something going on. There's always something to drag you in, and you might have times where you have to, like, you know, just do some busy work and talk to your friends and that, but there's always an event coming up that you want to see. You know what I mean? Like Dragon Quest, I had the credits roll, and then it was like, okay, I guess that's the ending. I'll come do the post game in a bit then. Persona 5 never had anything like that. In fact, the credits didn't even roll, you know, until that very last arc, which is actually, I found out later, an optional arc. If you don't do certain things in the game, you won't actually get to experience that arc, so that's kind of crazy. But it's such a big game, I will for sure be playing it for years to come. One of my favourite games on the Switch now, and it for sure gets a V5 out of V5. One of the best games of the year. Quickly want to shout out the soundtrack as well. I think that is, people tell me it's one of the best soundtracks ever, you know, in gaming. I think that it definitely is, like, it's definitely up there. I think the boss theme for it's like Shin Megami Tensei, but not as wild. It's a bit more like laid back and cool. I love both. You know, I love both styles, but Keeper of Lust is one of my favourite battle themes ever now, I think. I think that some of the dungeon themes are brilliant as well. Some of these shop themes, just shop themes, like when you go to buy medicine. God, it is so groovy, I love it. It's just, in the visual style of Persona 5 is so famous, and you can see why. Like, the UI just flips and switches, and it's so stylish. It's so in line with the Phantom Thieves theming. You know, you're going into people's subconscious to steal their treasure, to tell, you know, to make them confess their crimes from their own mouth. And just the way the UI, like, is so sleek and sneaky, and oh, it's brilliant. It's like expert design. And at first, like, when it's like a bit like sensory overload sometimes, because there's so much on the screen, but you're playing the game for so long that once you're like 20 hours in, you'll have the hang of the menus. It's no bother. I will quickly say on the visual front that this is a pretty old game by now. I actually I don't know if this is true, but I did read that apparently for Royal, they used the models of the Persona 5 Strikers game and like sort of reanimated them into what the original Persona 5 models did. That's cool. That's a cool way to update it, and I think the Switch version looks good as well. There are like background bits that are blurred and textures that are blurred, some writing that looks a bit fuzzy and stuff like that. It's not a deal breaker, but it is. I don't know if it's like that on other systems. I'm assuming it's not, but it is something to note. The game runs like beautifully. Like I don't think it dropped a frame from the 30 FPS throughout the game, and the character models look great too. They look great in their costumes, in that Phantom Thieves costumes, but there's just something about their eyes when they're outside of the metaverse and they're not in their Phantom Thieves costume. There's just something about them. I don't know if they're too far apart on the face or too big. They just don't look proportioned right to the face, and it bothers me. So sometimes there's some anime cutscenes, and there's plenty of them by the way, of these anime cutscenes. I thought at first, because there was quite a few at the start of the game, I thought they were going to do a Ni no Kuni where, I've said it before, but the developers would like make a load at the start of the game, and then they'd be like, hang on a minute, this is like a long game, shit. You know, we've expended all, we've put all our budget straight in the middle of in the first bit of the game. Let's wait and then just do animated scenes at the end. There are a lot more at the start, but they are continuous throughout the game, and the animated cutscenes are so beautifully done. The character model, the characters look great, and that's how I wish they looked in the game. That's what I mean, because sometimes like a cutscene will be with in-game models and not the anime way. Maybe most of the time it is, but like when you see an anime cutscene, you're like, that's beautiful, and then when you see an in-game cutscene, you almost wish it was just animated. The screen faces black, and you're like, oh, anime cutscene, and it's not. It's an in-game one, and you're like, oh, okay. And it's still good. You still get like the effect of it, but I would prefer to see anime cutscene. Now it is the year of threes. We've had Xenoblade 3, Splatoon 3, and now we've got Bayonetta 3. So for some reason, I actually picked up the special edition of this game. I'll be honest, I don't know really why. I think it's because I enjoyed Bayonetta 2 so much, and I was kind of like salty that I missed out on the special edition of that game. I kind of regret it in a way, because this game didn't really live up to what I hoped it would do, and that is dethrone Bayo 2, because I loved Bayo 2 so much. Yeah, this game didn't quite do it, and I'm not too sure why. It's a good game. It's a fun game. I just don't know if maybe I was in the right state of mind playing it or something, but I would just play it, and I don't know, I just wasn't into it. Maybe it's because of the story. The story's so wishy-washy. I mean, all Bayo stories aren't that brilliant, but I don't know, I felt into the characters and what was going on in Bayo 1 and 2. Maybe Bayo 1 to a more extent, because that one was a bit more personal to Bayonetta. This one just felt a bit... Things just sort of happened, and yet that always seems to happen in Platinum games. Yeah, it happened in Wonderful 101 as well, and Astral Chain to some extent. But things just sort of happen, then the action goes down. But I don't know, even the exploration in this game, I felt that Bayonetta 2 had it so right with like more, like smaller areas, but like ones that you could still explore and find a lot of stuff. The areas in Bayo 3 are huge, and I would spend so long just like scouring these massive areas for stuff that I thought was there, and sometimes, most of the time it was nothing. I just wish there was a bit more combat in the game. It didn't feel like I ever got to the point where I got good at the game, and I think that's the thing that bothered me. There just wasn't enough there wasn't enough gameplay, like combat-wise, to really make me want to get good at the game without going back to chapters I'd already played. I didn't really want to do that, to be honest. So I think I do want to play it again. Like, I would love to go through the Bayo games and play them again. I've actually thought about doing a review on the first couple of Bayo games for the channel. After this one, I think I need a bit of a Bayo break. I still think the music's fantastic. The game looks great too. Like, the set pieces that Platinum do are always fantastic to look at. Like, visually and gameplay-wise, the gameplay is just as good as Bayo 1 and 2, if not better. The gimmick in this game is that you actually use the infernal demons as slaves, and you can like just fully summon them and control them and you can be that infernal demon. I didn't like how needed it felt sometimes, because they could do massive damage, whereas Bayo can't really do too much damage. I just didn't feel like she did any damage in this game. I was using the Beyblades, the spinny Beyblades for a bit. It was also a bit of a shame that you couldn't mix and match weapons. In the first two games, you could have like the Beyblades on your arms and have like the guns on her legs, and you can mix and match them, but you couldn't do that in this game. I think it's because your weapons were tied to what demon you were summoning or something like that. I'm not too sure what the issue was, but yeah, I just felt like I needed more time with the game to actually get good at it, but I just wasn't interested in the story that much. I think part of it was because it's a multiverse story, and the multiverse story, like, oh my god, it isn't everything nowadays. It is so overdone. I just didn't care for it. I felt that seeing other Bayonettas was like a humour thing, but it wasn't very, like, story-wise, it wasn't very interesting. you know, like I would rather her meet new characters in like new worlds. It was cool seeing her in like all the kinds of different like cultural attire, like a Japanese one and a old Roman one or something like that. But I also didn't enjoy Viola. I didn't enjoy her character. She had some cool moments, don't get me wrong, but I just wasn't a fan of her. I felt like her gameplay style was, I mean, I think I heard the game got patched recently because one of the main things about why I didn't really like Viola is the fact that instead of witch time by dodging, you know, you keep it on the move and you keep the kinetic energy going. She has to stand still and use a parry attack to parry the hit away, and then witch time comes on. But it felt like you got no like time afterwards. Like the witch time was so small, that the window was so small for you to do anything. I've heard they've actually patched the game to make it, they've actually increased the window, so maybe it'll make her bits more enjoyable. I did enjoy her demon, Cheshire. I thought that was like a really cool combination where you summon him and you can't fight with your sword anymore, but Cheshire he controls himself. He's not like Bayo's demons where you control them. Cheshire will control himself and you can like double team enemies. I just thought her character was like, I think maybe they could have done more of her character. I think that's it. She just didn't seem, she wasn't in it enough to really like make me endeared to her. Like I just wanted to get back to playing as Bayonetta, but like the stuff Bayo was doing wasn't very interesting. And that's the thing, like no one does anything interesting in this game. The only thing, it don't really make any sense either. And like I said, that's just a platinum thing. I think that Astral Chain is really the only one that the build up they did really well. Sorry. But then even in that game, you know, the ending of that game and like the lead up to the ending, I thought, oh god, they've done the platinum. So like I said, I'm really unsure on Bayonetta 3. I think I did like it, but I've got no rush to go back to it, and it's a big shame really because this game has been like on the docket for a long time, and it's one that I think gameplay wise it probably did deliver. I don't know, there's just something about it that I'm just not too big on. I also just quickly want to say as well, obviously there was that big controversy, the voice actor controversy. You can definitely tell that it's a different voice actor, obviously. It's the new voice actress to Jennifer Hale. I think she does a great job as Bayonetta, but disregarding like, and you know, the reasoning behind the controversy or anything, like just from a pure voice actor to voice actor preference or comparison, you can't argue that Helena Taylor is Bayonetta, you know, the original voice actress. Like the way she delivers her lines in the original 2 games, and maybe the script was a bit better as well, but she has very cool moments Bayonetta in this game, but it's just how high her voice goes. Like she doesn't have like the commanding presence as much as she did in the other 2 games. Maybe it's because of the scenarios she was in, but I definitely felt that the new voice actress for Bayonetta wasn't as strong as the original voice, but she still did a stellar job, and I think everyone else did a stellar job as well in the game regarding the voice acting. I think Jean got a bit of the back seat in this game. She was relegated to side chapters, which were like these little stealth mini games, which I actually didn't mind, to be honest. I actually kind of enjoyed them. Maybe it's because they were a bit more like simple, and I just didn't have to explore these big expansive areas. Like, I was like, oh. I remember landing in the desert level in this game, and it's just so big, and I was like, oh, I don't want to explore all this. I just want to fight and like move on my way. And I think that's one of the things that makes Bayonetta 1 especially a lot more replayable, is because that game was, it was a bit like 14101, where there weren't these open areas that you could explore as much. It was more about just getting to the next area and fighting, and that's what I wish Bayonetta 3 was more of. I think for the next Bayonetta game, they should really like maybe just cut off the fat a bit. I felt there was too much on this game. Yeah, bit unfortunate. Okay, we're in the final stretch, and I know I said I'd do this chronologically, but I actually forgot about a game that came out this year that is good, and I can't really say that I completed it because it's kind of like an archival thing, but it is Atari 50, the anniversary celebration. There you go. I'm sure many of you know that I love a good collection. I love a good game compilation. I just love, it's like bang for buck. It's such a good deal. Sorry about my chair. Such a good deal. And yeah, you just get so much in there for a price that people would have had to pay for separately back in the day. So this has got, I think it's over, how many does it say? So there's more than 100 playable games in here. I don't know if there's a bit of a, you know, that's like, they're counting 2 games in one as 2 games, I don't know. But that's a lot of games, and to be fair, I can believe it because of actually seeing the amount of stuff in this game. Holy shit, yeah, I can see there being over 100 playable games in here. And they're from over Atari's entire history, you know, not just like the 2600 and some of the games that probably, you know, are dog shit by today's standards, but stuff like their arcade games which are timeless, like Centipede and Breakout, and some of the games have actually been like reimagined for this collection. So like they've like remade Breakout, they've remade, I think it's called Haunted House, and now it's like a 3D sort of game, like the mechanics reworked and stuff. There's a game where it's like 3 different space games in one. It's brilliant, it really is. Just a brilliant celebration of Atari's history. And the best thing by far about this is the fact that you've essentially got built-in documentaries into the game. I said a couple of years ago about the SNK 40th anniversary collection. That game had like a museum of treasure trove of stuff from SNK's history. You could go onto a certain game on the museum, the archival bit, and it would sort of like slideshow its way through different aspects of the game, have little blurbs and director commentaries and stuff like of what actually the game was about, you know, how significant it was. Was it the first game to do something? That was really cool. This is taking it to the next level. It is a complete timeline of Atari's history, like good and bad, and there's developer interviews, actual like video interviews on the game. There's so many high-res scans of design concepts and storyboards and letters between executives and the ground floor staff, or between developers, even if they're pitching a game or they've got an idea for a game. Like, I can't remember who it was who designed Centipede, but they'll be sending letters to Atari about it, and then they'll send feedback about it, and it's incredible. It's like you're almost in that space of when the games were being made, and it's amazing. It really is. And I've only at the moment covered their arcade sort of journey. There's like 3 more documentaries on there, but it's so interactive in a way that a movie couldn't be. You know, you have like these little dots, and like the dots will appear and give you little infos, about the game or about the timeline Atari's in. And then if it's related to what that paragraph has just said, it'll have a few more dots below it, and it can be like, one of those high-res scans about the game they're talking about, or about a letter that relates to what was going on. It just feels like you've got an all-in-one info bit about what's just been told to you, and you can take it at your own pace as well. You can choose which videos to play, and then when the games come up, like a game will pop up in one of these little blurbs, and you can like view what the game is about. You can then choose to play the game, and it's what I mean. There's no game they've talked about in this collection yet that you can't play. It's insane, and it is without a doubt the best video game archival collection that there is out there. This is how you do it. It's kind of insane to think that they put pretty much all of their history in one package, at least up until the Jaguar, I think it is. Is it the Jaguar? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's like up their hardware history, so I don't think it goes beyond their last console. It goes up to their last console, but even the Jaguar, I think it's the Jaguar and Lynx, even they have games that are playable here. Not as many as obviously like the 2600 and stuff, and yeah, a lot of these games are not like playable today. There's a lot of, there isn't ET on there, unfortunately. I think they really should have put that on, but not from what I've seen actually, because there is some games that are locked. So I think you have to play through the documentary to actually unlock the games to be able to play them, which I don't mind doing. It's an incentive for actually going through and watching and learning about this very storied company. 50 years of game development is nothing to sneeze at, especially when this came before the modern companies that are leading the industry today, like Nintendo, Sony, and what have you. So yeah, it's very interesting. And yeah, if you're interested in like game history in any way, you can just watch a few YouTube videos and stuff. But like, this is such a fantastic way to experience it. It's a hard one to rate for me as well, because it's a game that I don't, it's not exactly a game that I love. I don't love playing this, but I love what it does. So I guess I'll put it in V5. And lastly, a bit of a surprise this year, but a game that I was excited for nonetheless. I am surprised at how much I liked it though, and that is Dragon Quest Treasures. So Dragon Quest has been in a bit of a lull really since 2019 when Dragon Quest XI's came out. I know they re-released it for other platforms apart from the Switch, but there hasn't been many spin-offs or anything like that. It's mainly been on the phone and anime side. I know there's been like the Adventure of Dai and stuff, which I've never really bothered with any of that. I'm only bothered about the main stuff on actual consoles. So yeah, I've been looking to get a bit of a Dragon Quest fix. Just over 3 years since I've really got into Dragon Quest XI's. Yeah, Dragon Quest Treasures came out, and it's sort of a prequel to it in a way. It's kind of like a non-canon prequel, I think, because it's kind of like a little side adventure, because you've got Eric and Mia, who are characters from 11. But except this time they're kids, it's before their adventures in 11. And essentially the game is just a big Dragon Quest fan service treasure hunt. That's pretty much what it is. You're tasked with building up your base in this land of Draconia, I think it is, And these different islands that you can go to, which are like a desert island, a volcanic island, a frozen island, stuff like that. Your goal is to collect as much treasure as you can. You think in a game like this, treasure will be like the boring thing. It's the thing. It's like a collectathon. You just collect the thing, but the actual fun is like exploring the world and stuff. There is so much here that is just callbacks to loads of other games in the franchise, not just the main games either. You could find characters from all the other Dragon Quest games, right down to like castle walls from other Dragon Quest games. Like I've got one where it's like a castle wall that's rubble, and I was like, where the hell's that from? And then you have a look on in the treasure vault, and it'll tell you which game it's from and give you a little description. And it's like, oh, this fell down when, you know, so and so threw the monkey at it, or, you know, just for a little example. And you're like, oh shit, yeah, I do remember that. And it's, you know, I haven't played Dragon Quest 9 or 7 yet, so there's stuff in there that I didn't know about there. It's one of those really as well, it's a great advert for Dragon Quest, because if you have played 11, for example, and you've got, you know, you really enjoy Eric and Mia as characters, you'll be able to play this game and then get excited about some of the stuff that you find and be like, whoa, that guy looks cool, I wonder what his deal's about. And then it might get you interested in the other Dragon Quest games. And for someone I've played nearly every Dragon Quest mainline game, I haven't played 3, 7 or 9 yet. Those are gaps, but like they had characters that I was like, oh, that's where, you know, that's where this staple item came from. It came from Dragon Quest 3. I'm interested to see, you know, how that was first implemented or something like that. So it's just a great overview of the history of the series, and it's got that signature Dragon Quest feel-good charm. You know, it's got the music of the series, which you could argue is a bit lazy because it's just the same music from like a load of other Dragon Quest games. But I mean, I'm not going to complain because I really enjoy Dragon Quest music when I'm playing the game. I've always said that Dragon Quest music for me isn't like a playlist staple outside of the game, but in the game it really makes it feel like a Dragon Quest game. It really makes you feel like cozy, and not like a cozy game as in like Stardew Valley or anything, but just like cozy as in this is like really comfortable and just makes you happy. It's so colourful. The designs are timeless. The enemy designs are timeless, which you can recruit. You can recruit the monsters into your team. This time, I think it's a bit like Dragon Quest Monsters. I've never played those games, and I've heard this in that way it's kind of similar, but this is not a turn-based game. This is a action game, an action RPG. Very simple one. You know, it's like a 1-2 hit combo. It's very simple. It's mainly how you set up your monsters. You know, they have like different skills they can give you to explore the world, like you can jump off the top of them or glide with them, or they can scan the area. Something that is so charming that I really enjoyed was when you actually scan for treasure. If a treasure's near, the monsters will show you out how they see things, like how they see the treasure, because they can spot where it is specifically. Say like a knight, they'll show you the vision, but show you the grate in front of their eyes. Some of the flying enemies will have like a really zoomed in effect, you know, like a bit like the Mr. Krabs meme, but like a zoom in effect. That's just how they see the world, and they have a different one for every monster, which is just such a charming thing to do. There isn't too many monster types in the game. Like, there's a lot of Dragon Quest monsters that are not in the game for you to recruit, which is a bit of a shame, but you know, I think there's more than enough here. There's like different variations of certain monsters, like there's rare variations, like you can find a golem and then a golden golem and a ruby golem, and they're almost as fun to find and recruit as the treasure themselves. You can craft materials to create certain pellets to make your party stronger. It's funny really because like really you're not the main damage dealer or the main like combat guy. You're more playing support to your monsters. You know, you're supposed to set them up and then let them go and do the fight, and you're sort of in the background healing them or buffing them, and then maybe every so often you'll be able to get like a good hit in or something, because I think I built my characters so that essentially rely on critical hits, because I think there's a medals you can collect in the game. You can upgrade your stats or give you different attributes. Like there's one where every time you get a critical hit your attack goes up or something. Then there's one where you can dodge out the way at the last second and all your stats will go up, so I stuck that on as well. So I really just like wanted to buff my, it was weird, it was like the more criticals you get, which is a good thing anyway, the more powerful you got, and it felt broken, but I loved it. There's also special moves that your monsters can do. They're mainly like all the same thing, they're mainly like screen nukes, and you have one where you can like speed up your attacks, speed up your movement. There's so much in the game, and that's one of the things I found with Dragon Quest spin-offs. They're always like really fleshed out. Like Dragon Quest Builders 2, it could have just been like a Minecraft clone. It wasn't. It had its own like 70-hour RPG story to go through, as well as doing all like, you know, creating your own stuff, and that was incredible. And in this game as well, like if you just did the main stuff, you're probably getting around like 30-40 hours game, which is like still really good for a Dragon Quest spin-off game, which is like longer than most of the main games, to be honest. But even with that, I put in more time than that because I was actually just really interested in finding all the treasure. I will say later on, when you found a lot of the treasure, you will get more duplicates than you probably would like, and that's a bit annoying. I wish that when you found a treasure, if it was a duplicate, it didn't come up in a silhouette like it normally does. I wish it would actually just show you the treasure that you've picked up if you've already got it, so you can decide to keep it or not, because each treasure has like a different treasure rating, so it can be like in good condition or like excellent condition or bad condition. And if you get a treasure that you've already got in the vault, it will like, you could potentially upgrade the condition of the treasure. And this is the thing really, because like there's two separate categories. There's a treasure category for like the really expensive stuff and the really valuable stuff, and then there's bric-a-brac, which is like the lesser treasure that you don't have to like scan for, you can just sort of find it out and about. The bric-a-brac treasure might be less valuable, but sometimes it's more interesting because you get a lot of like Dragon Quest spin-off characters from that. And my first Dragon Quest game that got me into the Dragon Quest series, which I hope to do like a dedicated video on at some point, is Dragon Quest Heroes Rocket Slide for the Nintendo DS, and that is such a nostalgic game for me, and I love its pieces, and I was so happy when I actually got to find characters and items from that game specifically. You could find them as treasures in this game. So in my display vault, we display like up to like 6 treasures or something. Pretty much all of them I've got as characters from Dragon Quest Heroes Rocket Slime, which is so cool. I love it. I remember popping off so hard when in Dragon Quest XI's, if you do really well at the casino, you can get into like a battle with do something, and Slivel or Slivel's battle theme comes on from Dragon Quest Heroes Rocket Slime. And when I heard that, I was like, holy shit! That it blew me away, because for me, that seemed like such a forgotten game, and the fact they put like an amazing piece of music from that game in Dragon Quest XI was like, oh my god, I love this. And I love it in here too. It's just so good, and it's like that for a lot of the other Dragon Quest games as well. Like even if you've only played like Dragon Quest Monsters or Dragon Quest Monsters Joker or anything like that, there's gonna be someone in here that you're going to be like, holy shit, I can't believe they put them in the game. There's so many good character models and enemy models and items and just stuff you wouldn't expect to see here, like the smallest things. Like there's like a dungeon. I remember seeing like one come out and it was like a dungeon floor from Dragon Quest 2, and I remember being like, that piece of shit, because it was like this cave where there was like holes hidden in the floor, and it was a pain to get through. But as soon as it come up on in the model viewer, I was like, I remember that place like the back of my hand, and I don't know, I just felt so giddy about it, and it is the most interesting thing. There's also a load of hidden stuff around as well, like special hidden items and a ton of quests to do. The story isn't like super interesting or detailed or what have you. Like you're not playing the game for the next bit in the story really, but it's a fun enough story, and it'll keep like kids entertained in that. And that's something I will say, is I've seen a lot of people say that this is probably better for like a younger person wanting to get into Dragon Quest, and I can definitely see that for sure. It's it's 2 kids as the protagonists, and even though they might not know all the Dragon Quest fan service stuff, it's still a very simple game that you can have fun with, and I think kids will probably find it more entertaining than adults, because it can get a bit repetitive at times, but because of the fan service and just the feel-good nature of the game, that was never a thing for me. But yeah, it's Dragon Quest Treasures, definitely one of my favourite games of the year. I absolutely loved it. I'm interested to see if they do any more with this series, because like most Dragon Quest games, outside Japan anyway, don't think this is sold particularly well. I would say keep an eye out on on a price drop for it, because it will be worth picking up. It was a very big surprise for me this year. The only thing I will say about it is some of the downsides can be like the visuals. The visuals don't look particularly fantastic. They don't look much better than, I'd say, like a Pokemon Sword or Shield or what have you. In terms of like, I'd say in terms of like modelling or textures, but like in terms of the colour and vibrancy, like it definitely picks it up there. And I think a lot of the character models look absolutely bang on, so they sort of carry the package in a way. And it's really not, I don't really find it distracting or a big deal, to be honest. There's just a ton of stuff even for me to do in it still, and I've put like 60 hours into it. So yeah, I love Dragon Quest Treasures. So that's it guys, that is all the games I've played this year. Just a good year for gaming, although I've got to admit, after I've gone through the games and like talked about them, I'm not as enthusiastic about this year as I was at the start of the video. You got to remember, that was like the start of the video when I started recording this, that was like November then. I'm in March now, start of March now. And also just want to quickly say that I think I said at the start of the video that I was going to do like a winner for games that have come out this year, but only this year, they haven't come out on other systems before or anything. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do a game of the year. I don't know why I said that. It was a bit awkward to edit out, so I just left it in. But yeah, I'm not going to be doing that. So my game of the year winner, it was very close between Xenoblade 3 and Persona 5 Royal. It's Xenoblade 3. I can't really express how close it was, because at one point when I was playing Persona 5, I thought, I'm actually enjoying this. Well, not enjoying it more than Xenoblade 3. This is the thing, because I was really enjoying Persona 5, and I still do. I still really love the game, and it is close between the two of them. But if I think about it, like, I came away from Xenoblade 3 putting about 100 hours into it, just wanting more. I wanted so much more. Like it didn't feel like 100 hours, that game. It felt like I could have put in like another 300 until I was satisfied. Persona 5 Royal, I left feeling like, okay, I'm glad I'm done with that now, because it was just getting a bit much. Xenoblade 3, it is one of the best games on the Switch, and you know, thanks to me not being able to get this video out in time, I've actually been able to see the trailer for the new DLC coming out. I really am annoyed that the DLC is going to change how I feel about this game, you know, depending on how good it or bad it is. And I think that's probably why, because I'm feeling a lot more enthusiastic about Xenoblade 3 after seeing the DLC trailer. I've discussed with my two friends, Gavin and Espio, in a FATcast that we just did, if you want to see a more in-depth conversation about that. I don't like how the main game didn't allude to anything. I think if this DLC didn't come out, then I would find Xenoblade 3 still underwhelming, and I mean, even with it being underwhelming, I would still say it's my game of the year. So I just had such a massive grin playing all the way through this game, and I was so excited to play it. I just played it non-stop, and yeah, it's been the thing I've been most into. I can't not give a game of the year that, just because it was a bit underwhelming for me in terms of like the story, because in everywhere else it excelled. Like, the gameplay is the best it's been in the Xenoblade series. Although the world isn't as interesting, it's still a joy to explore. The characters are absolutely fantastic, and I just wish that they maybe tied it into the greater story more, because then it would all come together in a better way. The DLC could be incredible, and it could be the best bit about Xenoblade 3. Still don't know if they're going to release a physical version or anything yet, but I wish this complemented the game like Torna complemented 2. If Torna didn't exist, 2 would still be an all-complete game masterpiece. This could be a masterpiece with the DLC included. Without the DLC, it does fall short in some areas, but if I don't compare it to any of the other Xenoblade games and just compare it to what came out this year, it is the best game that came out this year for me. I was nowhere near as emotionally invested in Persona as I was Xenoblade. I was in Xenoblade. Like, there's so many moments I could talk about when I was just like on the edge of my seat, just all in. Like, the world was literally me and my TV, and I can't say I've had that experience with a game for a very long time. Probably since either Dragon Quest 11 or Witcher 3. Witcher 3 was like a game like that with me as well, where it was just me and the world. And yes, it's very rare that you come across those kind of games, and I think if I played the game again, I would think more favourably of it, and I'm looking forward to doing so. Whereas Persona is like a very intimidating game to play again, because it's just so long. I will play it again, but Xenoblade 3 is one that I am already excited to go back and play again. I just want to do it with the DLC in mind, which is a shame, but at the same time very exciting. So yeah, Xenoblade 3. So just to quickly go on what I said before, yeah, 2022 was I played so many games this year, and it doesn't look like I'm going to be playing a load of games this year as well. I actually went back on like what I did in 2020 and 2021 to some extent, where in 2019 I played a shitload of games and was like, I'm going to try and just, you know, shave off the fat a bit and just play what I really want to play. Last year I played everything that I really wanted to play, and I'm really excited for this year as well. I'm looking forward to Sea of Stars. I've just got Metro Prime Remastered and playing through that, and Octopath Traveler 2, so I'm playing through those right now. I'm really looking forward to Tears of the Kingdom, of course. Dokapon Kingdom is getting a remake with online play for the Switch, which I am unbelievably excited for. I cannot wait to talk about that game in the next year's video. Advance Wars is finally coming out as well. There's just so much still to look forward to for me with the Switch, and I'm in a weird place with the Switch, to be honest, because I'm enjoying it so much still, but I'm not like wanting a new system, because for me the software is the most important thing. Hardware for me has never really been that exciting, but I'm more like nervous. I want everything that the Switch is to be available on the next system. I want it to be backwards compatible, and I'm also looking forward to what the next system's going to be. But yeah, just I don't know what's going to come around the corner with the Switch, but unlike the Wii U, you know something is coming, and you don't know what it's going to be, but it's probably going to be something really cool. And that's pretty much what the Switch has been for me for the last few years. So thanks for watching, guys. I know it's been a long one. I'll see you in the next one.